The Board of Trustees of the Lamar Consolidated Independent School District is called to order at 6:30 p.m. This is a special board meeting being held on December 11th, 2023. We have a quorum with 6 members present. Trustee Hubenek is not here this evening. If you will please join me in a moment of silence to observe as you feel appropriate. Okay, please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance and the pledge to the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Thank you. Please be seated. The next item on the agenda is information and possible action items. Item 2A, consider amendment of previous board action regarding rezoning options for Tomas High School. Following our last school board meeting on November 14th, where we deliberated on an option to outline the attendance boundaries for the next 5 years, community members expressed concern and confusion. The board recognizes the significance of this decision and its impact on our students, families, and the community. As a result, we have decided to revisit this vital conversation and have asked administration to present the maps that were created as drafts for option A, rezoning by neighborhoods, again this evening. After hearing the presentation, we will discuss our thoughts and vote on how we will rezone for our next secondary complex. Dr. Nivens, I'll turn it over to you and your team for the presentation.
All right, good evening, board members. Good evening, community members. Thank you, everybody, for coming out tonight. So we have Ms. Cole Hamilton who's going to, we're going to talk about rezoning options for Tomas High School. But before we get started, I just want to first say thank you, everybody, for making time. The engagement and activity has been absolutely outstanding. And so now that everyone's here, you know, you're charged with taking the information, the accurate information back, right? And so as you're listening, and I know there may be some side conversations, I really ask you to keep that to a minimum because we have a lot of information we've been talking about since June, and there's been a lot of misinformation out there. And so now that you're here, I really want to make sure that you give 100% of your attention, and then you can have the information. And then afterwards, we'll have a section for public participation if you signed up already. But if you have not, we'll have another meeting tomorrow night if you want to be able to ask your question. If you don't get a chance to do that, you can, again, always email info@lamarcisd.org. I almost said communications. info@lcsd.org. All right? So, Ms. Cole Hamilton.
Yes, thank you. And as President Bronzell stated, the board does recognize the significance of the decision, and administration is happy to revisit this vital conversation and present some draft options for you. So during the November board meeting, we did present 2 potential options to rezone for the opening of Tomas. Option A was a neighborhood approach, and it's rezoning by neighborhoods, which is how we traditionally approach rezoning. Option A, we will continue to have elementary schools that split color tracks, and your elementary school does not determine your secondary zoning. The option B addresses 3 new elementary campuses with a single rezoning plan. It aligns 5 neighborhood campuses per secondary feeder, creating true feeder patterns, and it provides advanced communications to impacted communities. And we call option B an elementary school approach. And so the decision point that was before you in November, trustees, again, option A was to open Tomas, which is rezoning by neighborhoods. Going with option A means that people should consider the elementary rezoning and loving options as separate from the Tomas High School option B plan. Option B, again, could potentially impact elementary school students changing to a different high school color track, whereas option A, the elementary attendance zones would have zero impact on the secondary attendance zones. We tried to connect them with option B, but option A would disconnect them completely.
So, what she just said was, because we had to be crystal clear, right? What she just said was, last month, we recommended that we zone by elementary school. And so now we're gonna present an option to change that and zone by neighborhoods is which way we've always done it. Okay? So now we're gonna present maps for Tomas High School rezoning, and then we'll talk about what neighborhoods will potentially go to Tomas, Foster, and all those other things. And so at the end of this, the board's gonna take a vote to reverse that and go with what we've always done by rezoning by neighborhood. Make sense?
Yeah, but let me ask a question here. Because we're talking about going back to the previous model, which was by neighborhood, but not in a concrete manner. Because sometimes we do split a neighborhood, right? So it might not be completely accurate to say we're gonna rezone by neighborhoods.
The distinction would be, it's your entire elementary will not go to a particular secondary campus. And yes, sir, we have a prescriptive approach where it could divide a neighborhood or using natural boundaries, but it's guided more by a neighborhood approach than just taking an entire elementary and aligning it to a secondary complex.
So it's more, okay, so I like that wording, guided by neighborhood. All right.
Okay, so we ready to hear some options? So should the board decide to go with option A, just an overview, as a fast growth district, we have 3 approaches to managing our enrollment. We cap an overflow, and that's when a campus reaches its capacity, and we close it off to any new enrollees, sending them to a neighboring campus. Through bonds, we can build and open new campuses, and that's our rezoning process. And then leveling is an option, and we'll talk more about leveling later this evening. But leveling is when we look at our enrollment across campuses. We look at the campuses that are over capacity. We look at the campuses that are underutilized, and we level to better balance enrollment among those particular campuses. But for this purpose, we are talking about a brand-new campus opening our secondary complex. So Tomas High School opens in August of 2025, and so we do need to rezone to create the population of students who would attend that campus, as well as its accompanying middle school and junior high school. Trustees, you have set some rezoning objectives and criteria. And the objectives and criteria are used to guide our zoning decisions. You all establish this, and we use and consider these as much as possible when we're developing new attendance zones. And just a brief summary and an overview of what's on the screen is our attendance zones are carefully drawn to optimize our school facility use while also balancing enrollment with our capacity. Overcrowding is addressed, and neighborhoods and feeder schools are kept intact as much as possible. Safe traffic patterns are considered for elementary students, and communication, of course, is key in informing families about any potential changes. Now, our rezoning process. Step 1, we work with our demographers to create multiple options for considerations, which the board will vet and approve for the ABC, the Attendance Boundary Committee, to review and provide feedback on. And in November, that's precisely the step we were at, kind of like step 1, or maybe half, getting to 1, was we have draft options for your consideration. The board will review the draft options. At the same time, the district, we have developed a survey targeting the areas potentially impacted by rezoning. Once the board approves the draft options that move forward for community feedback, we'll launch the survey. At the same time, we will have an attendance boundary committee who will review and consider the survey results and options. And the committee will rank the options, and the ranking will be presented to the Board of Trustees. Board of Trustees, you will then use that information and select and approve any zoning plans. The zoning process is built to incorporate community feedback. As we've shared, a decision and a process such as this is something that we want to do with our community, not merely to our community. And so a closer look at the Attendance Boundary Committee. This group is charged with being the voice of the people. They will provide feedback in how we would draw our attendance boundaries to accommodate new growths or shifts. Membership of the ABC will consist of representatives from potentially impacted campuses. The campus administrator, that's the building principal, will select the campus representatives, and then appropriate central administrators will serve as resources as needed. And trustees, if you happen to represent an area that is impacted by rezoning or leveling, you may appoint up to 2 people to serve on the ABC, and that should be a parent of a student who is or will be impacted within the next 2 years. Now, we're going to present several rezoning and leveling options, but tonight this is for Tomas. So just a heads up for you as we think through what it looks like to open up our secondary campus. In every option that we've drafted to present to you this evening, the George Ranch attendance zone does not change. So when we talk about who's going to serve on the ABC, It will be representatives from every high school except for George Ranch will have the opportunity to appoint a representative to the ABC. Trustees, back in November, you voted that Tomas will open with 9th through 12th graders, with it being optional for 12th graders to attend. And so just as a note for you all in our audience, this group represents our current 7th and 10th grade students. So as you look at these maps, I want you to consider how we're going to form this attendance boundary committee. It is important, I believe one of our trustees flagged, we've got to get elementary representation, so that's exactly what we're going to do. When you're looking at the impacted neighborhoods, we intend to have a representative, at least one elementary parent, one middle school parent, one junior high parent, and one high school parent, which needs to be a 9th grade student, of each impacted neighborhood. The maps you look at tonight impact up to 17 neighborhoods. So that's potentially 68 parents who can serve to give us community feedback regarding these attendance zones. Trustees, you also have the liberty to appoint up to 2 people, so that's a total of 14. So grand total, we're looking at about 82 people to serve on this particular ABC. Now let's look at the timeline. We're in the month of December. Trustees, you've asked us to revisit and create options for you. That's the very first bullet. Last week, we did have a quick meeting with principals to go over some potential options with the impacted principals. At the January 16th board meeting, not tomorrow's board meeting, but the one in January, we're going to bring this back to you as a future action item. And then in February, we'll select and notify the ABC. At the February board meeting, we'll bring that ABC roster to you. And it's at that meeting where you will determine which maps will move forward for community input. And then we'll launch our survey in March. Those ABC meetings will commence in April. And our whole goal is to have information for you by the April meeting for a future board action item. But May 21st will be the date so far that the board is slated to take action on determining the attendance zones for our secondary complex number 7. Now this evening, my colleague, Mr. Buchanan, will present some draft options of the potential rezoning for our secondary campuses to accommodate the opening of Tomas High School.
Good evening, Board Trustees and Dr. Nivens. Tonight, we're going to go over the first page we have, and it's in a handout in front of you as well, is the Tomas rezoning projections. On the upper left-hand corner of these projections in the gray is our current projections if we do not open Tomas High School. The yellow, peach, and green colors are the different options and the different projections. I would like to remind the Board of Trustees in November of 2022, our voters agreed to pass a large bond of $1.5 billion, and part of that was additions to our high schools, 500-seat additions to Foster, Randall, Tomas, and George Ranch, and a 1,000-seat addition to Fulshire High School. If you look at the building capacities on these projections, it now reflects what the capacities of those campuses will be in the fall of '24. I would also like to point out that we did not, in that bond, have additions to either the middle schools or junior high schools. So the reason that there's such a large slate of data is if you'll notice in our high school projections, all of our high school projections, the only high school that goes back into the red is Fulshire High School on any of the 3 options that we currently have. If you'll notice, the year that it goes red is in the fall of '27. That is when we are slated to open secondary complex 8. And its main relief will be to Fulshire High School's attendance zone. So the projections on this is if it is in red, that is a decision point for us because they are over both the building capacity and the portable capacity. If it is in orange, that means that they are over their building capacity, but they're able to house those student bodies within the portables and the building itself. If it is in blue, it means they are 70%, their enrollment is 70% less than the building capacity of itself, meaning it's underutilized. So the reason that we put the middle school and junior high on these projections is because if you'll notice both Roberts Middle School and Lehman Junior High, in any of these projections, they stay red through all of this without, even with the Tomas rezoning. They get some relief, depends on each option as we go through, but there are still some decision points that we will bring back to you later for those. Are there any questions about the projections?
So just to be clear, so for this, the 27-28 where it says 3709, when high school number 8 opens, that will come down.
That is correct.
And we just don't have it on here yet just because we don't have the building and we don't have all that yet, just for clarification. Right.
Yes, sir. We're in the process of purchasing the land, and we do have the money to construct it. So as soon as we get the land, we're in the process of starting that design and build of that facility as well.
Thank you.
Mr. Buchanan, if we are trying to get out of the portable business, how come we are basing our rezoning upon building plus portable capacity and not just building capacity?
Because at this point in time, we do not have enough building capacity to get out of the portable business. Our job is to keep building, but we're still trying to catch up to that bell curve to be able to get out of that. As we open up new campuses, we're taking that into effect to be able to pull portables off of campuses as we continue to open them. But yes, sir, just the growth that we're currently experiencing, we're not able to get the buildings open fast enough for the students that are coming at this time.
Okay. I might want to revisit that when we get to some of these elementary levelings, because I think it might impact that a little bit more than this, but
Yes, sir.
thank you.
So Board of Trustees, this is our current attendance zone for our secondary campuses. We did put the capacity projections on the right so that you could have that as we look through each one of these maps. In Tomas High School, that secondary complex will be located roughly at the corner of Bel Air and FM 723. So this is our first option to be able to look at and talk about tonight. So as we put the two maps side by side, if you'll notice, the Candela, Westheimer Lakes, Briscoe Falls, Talavera, Lakes of Bellaterra, Parkway Lakes, Lost Creek, and Grand Mission would be part of the Tomas attendance zone. The Foster's attendance zone will continue to include Lakemont and Long Meadow Farms that is north of 99 as well as south. The southern boundaries of the Foster attendance zone would be Kingdom Heights neighborhood, will continue to be in the Foster attendance zone, but everything south of that, which is currently in the GOAD, would shift over to Terry High School. As you look and go further east, Pecan Grove would now shift into the Foster attendance zone because of the number of students coming out of the northeast section. Again, George Ranch does not change at all in the attendance zone in option one. Randall High School, the only attendance zone part of Randall High School would be the Emberley, Bernard River Park, and the Kendleton area would shift out of Randall High School complex, secondary silver track into the red. Are there any questions related to option one? Okay, option two. Option two, the changes from option one to option two would be the Lakemont neighborhood would now go to Tomas High School. What we did on the southern boundary is now the Brazos River along with 90 would be the southern boundary of Foster High School. So everything north of the river, and then once the river hits 90, everything north of 90 would go into Foster High School. That would include both Kingdom Heights, River's Edge, Rio Vista, Pecan Grove, Pecan Lakes would all stay inside the Foster attendance zone. Again, there is no changes to the George Ranch attendance zone. The changes that we mentioned in option one about the Randall High School, which is Emberley, Bernard River Park, and Kendleton, will continue to stay into Terry High School's attendance zone. Are there any questions about option number two? So as we're looking at option number three, what we were attempting to do in this is to provide additional relief into both the Roberts, Lehman, and Fulshear High School. So by doing this, what we did on option three is the Lakemont neighborhood came back out of the Tomas. It stayed in the Foster. Those original neighborhoods stayed at Tomas, but then Tomas went west and picked up Cross Creek Ranch. Cross Creek Ranch, it is only the east of Texas Heritage Parkway portion of Cross Creek Ranch. Cross Creek Ranch is both east and west of Texas Heritage Parkway. It is only taking in the east section of that neighborhood, splitting that neighborhood between the attendance zones. Again, the southern section of Foster would stay the Brazos River along with 90. So Kingdom Heights, River's Edge, Rio Vista, Pecan Grove, Pecan Lakes, Long Meadow farms on either side of 99 and Lakemont would be in Foster. And again, the Emberley, Bernard River Park in the Kendleton area would shift from the Silver Track Randall High School complex into the Terry High School complex. Are there any questions about any of the options that we need to go back and review or?
No, I want to point out, though, that the Beasley area, which is not my area officially, on all three options, the recommendation is going to be to move them from the current Randall High School back to Terry High School, where they were before Randall High School opened. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
The Beasley Kendleton area.
Is
So-
it
so the
Beasley
only-
and Kendleton or just Kendleton?
Well, currently, right now, the Beasley area is already in the
That's right.
Terry attendance zone.
So we're all we moving is
Oh,
Kendleton.
I misspoke. So they were there before Randall High School opened, and I remember those folks were not aware that we were rezoning them. And they showed up at the meeting, like the last meeting that we were about to make the decision. So we need to let them know that this is happening, and making sure that there's some folks involved in this process there. So the only way they would stay at Randall High School is if the ABC changed it, is that correct?
That would be correct, sir. Or we got input from the Board of Trustees to create an option where they would stay where they're at.
Is it because we're trying to make sure Terry's numbers don't go down too much?
It's a combination of three things.
Okay.
Number one, Terry's high school numbers are continue to decline, so that assisted in that. Also, the area directly around Randall High School is continuing to develop at a rapid rate, so it gives them room for that attendance zone to grow within the boundaries that are currently at. And the third thing is right now, we have 4 buses running an area where 2 buses could run itself right now. So we have the southern section that is Silver Track, has to be 2 separate buses that run to Randall, and another right above it that's having to run to Terry High School. So logistically, that whole area has 59 where we can take it all the way up to 2218 and make a left into Terry High School.
Is it about the same time?
No, ma'am, it is shorter from there to Terry High School than it is
Okay.
from Randall, just because of the congestion, getting through all of that to get back down to Randall High School.
Okay.
Mr. Buchanan, is there any scenario whatsoever, far-fetched as it might be, that you can imagine the ABC touching the George Ranch High School zone? Because if there is any scenario, we need to have representation from George Ranch. But
So-
it doesn't sound like you.
I'm not a fortune teller, so I don't really know what the ABC would do. When I look at the projections, I don't see that George Ranch High School being 2,575, their enrollment is continued to slightly decline over the next 4 years. And that's just because those students are starting to age out of that neighborhood. So I don't see them doing it, but that would always be an option.
Well, part of my area goes to George Ranch, and I wouldn't mind some folks from there being on, just, even if they don't want to show up to the ABC. I don't know what Ms. Hotzel thinks about that, but I think it might be a safe thing to do.
I have a question on option 3, where you said Cross Creek Ranch would be split. Isn't Cross Creek Ranch also part of KDISD, I mean?
That is correct.
So now that neighborhood would have 3
Ye-
separate high
Yes,
schools.
ma'am. If you come down 1093 to the main entrance into Cross Creek Ranch off of 1093, that is the attendance boundary that divides both Lamar and KDISD. But the Viola Randall Elementary School that we'll be talking about later tonight, which is north of the Fulshire High School complex, that is also considered part of the Cross Creek Ranch subdivision, even though it is on the west side of Texas Heritage Parkway. So that small section of it will continue to stay at Fulshire High School. The one on the east side of Texas Heritage Parkway would then go to Tomas.
Okay, thank you.
I would also like to remind the Board of Trustees in this option, we will opening up secondary number 8 in that purple Fulshire area, so that Cross Creek Ranch could possibly be impacted again in the fall of '27.
Also, on that map, will Cross Creek develop south of 1093? Because I see it's orange, just south of, yeah, right there.
Currently, right there, that is not owned by the same developer that's developing Cross Creek Ranch.
Oh, okay.
So unless they purchase it, but at this time is a different owner of that
So
land.
no homes plan that we know of?
It's not been platted or anything like that as of right now.
You mentioned it twice, and I know we'll talk about it later on or say it again, but when population at schools decline, can you explain that since we have a lot of people watching on why a school may decline in enrollment?
So if a school declines in enrollment, usually it's an aging out process, especially when you have a newer neighborhood that comes in. Usually it's younger families. They come in as those families continue to grow. Those students age out of our system and start going to the secondary complexes such as university colleges, junior colleges, or technical schools. When that does happen, until that community, the older community members move out and newer, younger community members move in, there's a slowly decline in that as we look at it. Again, we're looking at administration to look at all of those factors to see once the enrollment gets to a certain point, do we start looking at the cost effectiveness of operating that facility, which we start to look at to see what do we need to do to help make decision points to get more students into the facility.
So, Mr. Buchanan, before you leave, Mr. Buchanan, if you go back to the first option that we showed, so what I'm gonna ask everyone in the audience to do is find your neighborhood. Because what we're gonna talk about next is leveling, the next section. And so what we're doing now is we're splitting that. So find your neighborhood, and depending on the map that the board approves from the three options they send forward, right? So let me back up and explain that. So with our demographer, as Ms. Cohampton said, with our demographer, we developed 3 maps as options to send to the trustees. The trustees will vote on those maps and say, okay, these are the 3 maps that the committee can rank. So no decisions have been made yet, because they're not gonna vote on what maps to send until January. And so now what we're doing is we're separating zoning by elementary campus and by neighborhood. So this now says, find your neighborhood on this screen. If your neighborhood right here is in yellow, where it's Foster, it's purple for Fulshire, or blue for Lamar, this could be now your student's potential high school, regardless of where they're going to elementary school. Make sense? So we've separated those. No feeder patterns, because last time we talked about true feeder patterns. And the reason why I presented true feeder patterns to the trustees was because we have several schools that have a split feeder pattern. So you think about Hubernac, that's like gold and purple, right? So it's kids split. So what we wanted to do was have a streamlined process where now we have no schools that have a split feeder pattern. And so now we're gonna go back to doing it this way, so every time we open up a high school, we're gonna have to rezone. So what I need you to do on these 3 options, and I saw a lot of people taking pictures as you share them on social media, tell folks, find your neighborhood. I'm being very clear. I wanna because there's a lot of misinformation out there. And we've been talking about this since June. Find your neighborhood. If your neighborhood is zoned in one of these 3 maps after the board approves it, and it goes to the committee, if that's your neighborhood, that's where your kid is gonna go to school regardless of where they're gonna go to elementary school, high school, if your neighborhood is in that color code.
I was just gonna give an example.
Give an example, let's do it.
So if
Let's
this
do it.
happens, if we vote on this, and let's say, for instance, your child on this map is at Pecan Lakes. They live in Pecan Lakes.
Mm-hmm.
They will go to Foster High School.
That's where it says, if this map is approved,
If
right?
this map is
This is
approved.
all an example. Please
Yeah.
don't write this in
Right.
stone. Please don't go on social media and say they said it.
Yeah,
On this example right here, if you live in Pecan Lakes, you're zoned where, Mr. Buchanan?
You'll be at Foster.
Foster.
Okay, so let's do another community. What's another community up there? my glasses.
River's
I
Edge.
got new glasses, y'all, so I'm
River's
struggling.
Edge.
That's on map 3.
River's
and
Edge.
That's right, well, it's right here. We're just gonna do this
We're
one
just
map.
gonna do
Because then
this one
everybody can
map,
take the
yeah.
concept, right? We're trying to teach the concept. You know, I'm an old teacher.
So in option 2, both Rio Vista and River's Edge would go to Foster, no matter what elementary school they attend.
So if your elementary school gets leveled, it would not impact your
It's not
secondary.
gonna impact secondary.
Just wanna make sure that's
we're separating those now.
completely clear.
We're
No
separating
longer
those
does
now.
that factor in.
We're separating those, all right? And so what I want to do is make sure everybody that's here, that's watching, that's in the overflow, you know, I'm an old teacher, so we believe in teaching concepts, right? So once you understand the concept, then you can get it. And so that's what you talk to your kids about. Do you understand the concept? And saying, do you understand what they're talking about? Ask them, do you understand the concept? Then they'll help them understand the class. Anyway,
So these
So-
three maps will go to the ABC committee
if you approve them,
if we approve them.
if you approve these three maps,
Yeah,
and so.
Until January.
right.
Until January. And so, once the maps are approved, then, you know, Ms. Clemmons will talk about that. And so, we're good, all right.
Okay.
I hope we're good.
Okay, so just to close out this presentation and to revisit what Dr. Nivens just said, the next steps will be at the January meeting, trustees, you would decide if these are the maps you want to bless to move forward for community feedback. The community survey for the Tomas rezoning would launch in March. Those ABC meetings would be in April. And then again, hopefully by May 21st,
Can
you all
put
be
the timeline
prepared
back up?
to make a decision.
If everybody in the room take a picture of this timeline too. I just wanna make sure we're very clear. If everybody in the room take a picture of the timeline and put it on social media, so where everybody's looking, they see the same information, right?
So-
Because y'all, there's a lot of misinformation out there. So we wanna make sure we say in March, there's a community survey going out. But again, the board has not made a decision. They won't make a decision on what maps the committee will even see until January. Okay?
So are the
February.
community survey, will that be being brought back to us in March or is it going out in March?
Goes out in March.
Okay, so we changed.
It goes out, well, no, for Tomas has been March, because the survey will launch, we'll close the survey, and then for the ABCs, they'll have that information to help guide their decisions. They'll have feedback from the community, as well as whatever presentations they hear in April.
And then who sees the survey results? What are we gonna do with that?
So our survey is launched by a third party. K-12 Insights manages our survey. They'll provide us with the data, the executive summary, and we give that data directly to the ABC. And they utilize that in their conversations and to help guide their decision, their recommendations for the ranking for the Board of Trustees.
Do we have public comment on this
Oh,
agenda
Public
item?
participation is,
So are we gonna do that
not on
and then
this,
make a
no, we don't
motion?
have any public participation on this item.
No one signed up for this
ma'am.
particular?
No one signed up for this one. We have 1,000 for the next one.
Ms.
Wait
Coleman,
till tomorrow night.
can the survey results also be put on the website or just to the ABC?
historically, we've given it to the ABC and the Board of Trustees, but if it's the board's will, I mean.
Or once we get it, then it can be posted? Okay.
Can you, with the surveys, can you speak to who will get the surveys, that it won't be a blanket survey for the whole district, or will it be for those in?
Thank you for the
families.
opportunity to clarify. We are seeking feedback from the potentially impacted communities. And so there's a number of ways that a parent will get the survey. Parents will get a direct, impacted communities, impacted campuses, will get a direct link from K-12 Insight, in which we pre-populated with some of the information, and then they can provide their recommendations. Our campus principals will also include the survey link in their campus newsletters. So that's another way that parents will get it directly. And in some cases, we put the survey link on the homepage of the campus site. We don't share the survey link via social media. The survey links, because there'll be multiple surveys at once, will not be on the front page of our website. As we get into the next two presentations, we will have two rezoning surveys running at the same time, and potentially 2 leveling surveys running at the same time. Close those, then we'll do the Tomas. And so we keep it only to those particularly impacted communities.
So people can only take the survey one time?
Our survey company can map it with their parent emails.
Oh.
And so once a parent has, taken a survey under their email, they can't take it again.
Okay, any other questions? Nope, okay. I move to amend the motion relating to Board Agenda Item 8A from the November 14th, 2023 regular meeting of the Board of Trustees by rescinding the zoning option taken, option B, and replacing it with option A. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Mr. Welch seconds. There's no public participation? No, okay. And now I call for the vote. All in favor of amending the motion relating to Board Agenda Item 8A from the November 14th, 2023 regular meeting of the Board of Trustees by rescinding the zoning option taken, option B, and replacing it with option A, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No, okay, the motion carries. That part is done.
I'm really tempted on you showing those maps one more time.
Show them one
Yeah,
more
let's show them
time.
one more time. Let's show 1, 2, and 3 one more time. And so this is option 1,
Hold on, let me get
right?
there.
Option 1 is on my right. So your neighborhood, find your neighborhood, that's option 1. So these are potential maps that's gonna go to the ABC committee. That's option 1. Option 2, a potential map, find your neighborhood. We don't need to highlight.
Okay.
Cause yeah, they know where they live. And then option 3, find your neighborhood. All right? Okay, I just wanna make sure we're crystal clear on that. So I really need everyone's help in making sure the accurate information gets out. That really would help. That really would help. I have to say, that really would help.
And also, the ABC committee has an option to put forward another map. Is
To
that
create
correct?
one additional
One
map
map.
that will come to the trustees for consideration.
If they wish to. Okay. Okay, so now I'm going straight into this, right?
Yes, ma'am. Well, let me say this first.
Go ahead.
Okay. All right, so next we have item 2B, is now we're talking about the leveling process and draft options for central and the southeast sections of Lamar CISD. Madam President?
Okay, I move to postpone any action on the leveling of Central Lamar CISD, blue, gold, red, until next year. Is there a second? Okay, motion dies for lack of a second. Let's see. Okay, here.
All right, Ms. Cole-Hamilton.
Okay, trustees, in the earlier presentation, I explained the 3 approaches that we take to managing our growing enrollment. This item will focus on leveling. And again, leveling is when we look at campuses that are over capacity and campuses that are under capacity. So we've got some campuses that have over 1,000 students. We have some campuses that have between 200 and 400 students, and we would look at those campuses and see how we can better balance enrollment. Maybe both campuses have 700 students, or maybe we drop the one that's over 1,000 down to 600, and we move other kids across the district just to create a more level environment for our campuses. And so whether we're doing rezoning or leveling, you guys, the trustees have provided the same guiding criteria. And so the same objectives will be used to guide our leveling decisions as we use for zoning. So the attendance zones will be carefully drawn to optimize school facility usage while balancing enrollment, managing it with capacity. We will address overcrowding in neighborhoods as feeder schools, try to keep neighborhoods intact as much as possible. Safe traffic patterns are considered for elementary students, and communication will be key in informing families about any potential changes. The leveling process mirrors the rezoning process. We work with our demographer to come up with draft options. We'll create an attendance boundary committee. We'll launch a survey. The committee will review survey results as well as additional information, and they will provide a ranking recommendation to the Board of Trustees. The attendance boundary committee for leveling, again, runs the exact same as rezoning, whereas the membership will consist of at least 2 representatives from each potentially impacted campuses, and our campus principals are charged with selecting representatives. In this format, trustees, you also have the opportunity to appoint people from your area to serve on the attendance boundary committee should your area be impacted by the leveling. Here's the leveling timeline. And again, just as Dr. Divins said, there was some misinformation out. I think members of our community were expressing sentiments that things were done in secret or they never had an opportunity for feedback. However, in looking at the timeline, we just weren't at the opportunity for feedback yet. In October, Cabinet did create some draft options. In early November, we presented options to those potentially impacted principals. And it was at the November 14th board meeting, trustees, when we presented it to you all for the first time as a future action item. We had been communicating this information to you all since June, but it was the November 14th board meeting that it started getting real for people. So once it went as a future action item, I think that's what sparked the public's interest in wanting to be a part of the process right now. And so tonight, we're having this board workshop to further discuss rezoning and leveling. Tomorrow evening, we'll have a board meeting. We'll discuss this again. Again, no action is being taken tomorrow evening. But while we go off for break and get ready to close for break, our principals are selecting representatives to serve on the ABC. So when we come back in January, they'll be ready to notify and identify who they would like to serve on their campus as their campus rep for the ABC. And then at the January 16th board meeting, trustees will bring that roster of names to you for consideration. And it's at that board meeting that you will decide which draft maps will move forward for an ABC and community survey input. We will launch the community survey the day after the board meeting, and it will stay open through the end of January. And our ABC meetings, we're gonna have 2 different ABCs for leveling. We're gonna present information regarding Central Lamar this evening, but then also Southeast Lamar. And you can see the dates for those 2 ABC meetings, with a total of 4 ABC meetings in all. And then in March, trustees, we'll bring this to you as a future action item, but the decision point actually occurs in April. So trustees, there's still plenty of time for you to continue to receive feedback from your constituents. There's plenty of time for us to receive feedback from our parents and families, and we are just at the beginning of this process. So, to better balance enrollment across our district elementary campuses, we have developed...
Let me pause real quick, Ms. Clem, I'm sorry. So I want to make sure, first off, we're all using the same vocabulary. So rezoning is for when we're opening new campuses. Leveling is when we are leveling current campuses. So you have one school over here with 1,200 kids, another school with 300. Now you have to level those. And so I want to make sure as a community, we're using the same vocabulary, right? So that we don't confuse rezoning and leveling. Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Divins. So this evening, we have developed 2 plans, one that addresses the central portion of our district and the other addresses the southeast portion of our district. We're now going to present draft options that address the central portion of our district, and this will impact the following trustees: Trustee Bronzell, Danziger, Hubenak, Lambert, and Welch. So let's start off by looking at these central projections. And again, just in our previous presentation, red represents campuses that are over capacity and a decision point is needed. That campus is over its building and its portable capacity. Orange represent campuses that are over their building capacity and they are using portables. And blue represents the campuses that are being underutilized. The impacted campuses for central projections would be Austin Elementary, Frost Elementary, Jackson Elementary, Long Elementary, Pink Elementary, Smith Elementary, and Travis Elementary. Do want to make a note for trustees and anyone watching at home or in the room, these are just data points and their projections, and therefore they represent estimations, and of course they are subject to change as the population shifts. Now, trustees, if you look at the projections, you see that if we do nothing, and that's what the bottom chart represents, if we do nothing, we have several campuses that are underutilized. And just as we have to make a decision when our campuses are overutilized, over capacity, we equally have a decision point before us when campuses are underutilized, because then we got to consider how much does it cost to keep that campus open. And so those are some options for you to think through this evening. I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Mr. Buchanan, who's going to walk us through the options that address the central leveling.
So as it comes up, I want to reiterate that now this is separate from what we talked about just earlier. And so now you find your neighborhood, and these are potentially where your students will go to elementary school. So 2 separate maps. All right, so we have 3 different maps that we're going to present. And then we'll keep going. Thanks, sir.
Good evening, Board of Trustees and Dr. Nivens. One of the feedbacks that we got from the Board of Trustees was, could we add neighborhoods to all of our maps? So our neighborhoods are labeled on every map that we present tonight. So this is our current attendance zone boundaries for our elementary schools in the central portion of our district. So option 1. So if you'll go back to the projections, Frost Elementary was the one that we're worried about being capped and having to start overflowing those students. So those were the impacted elementary school zone that we were trying to get students off of that attendance zone. So when we started looking at it, if you start on the east side, the Pecan Lakes neighborhood would be the first neighborhood that's on the south portion of that would shift over into Austin Elementary in this option. Rio Vista would continue to stay at Austin Elementary School, but River's Edge would shift to Jane Long Elementary. On the west side, you would have Kingdom Heights. Again, the southern section of Kingdom Heights, that neighborhood would be split and go to Jackson Elementary School to create room at Jackson Elementary School for those additional students. Riverside Terrace, along with 3 sections of downtown Rosenberg, would shift out of Jackson Elementary School and into Travis Elementary School. The Rivers Wood Village currently sits at the Jane Long attendance zone. It would shift into pink. That was really for 2 reasons. The first is transportation, having to go back and forth across railroad tracks. Sometimes there are times where the train comes through there and it gets stuck there for a little bit. And the river. So the Brazos River is north of Riverswood Village and the train tracks are on the south edge. There is a road that leads from Riverswood Village up to Pink Elementary, negating that area or having to cross the railroad tracks to get to and from campuses. There is a section, if you'll notice, in the Smith attendance zone where Brittany Square and Briarwood Stone Apartments is in a small carved out section of Smith. In this option, those 2 apartment complexes would go to Smith Elementary School, which they're closely adjacent to.
And the colors on the map mean what? These, like, I see a lot of purple, I see some pink, I see some yellow. What are that?
So the purple area is Frost Elementary attendance zone. The gold is Jackson Elementary School attendance zone area. Pink is pink. Jane Long is a light green. The teal color is Austin, and the blue is Smith. And the darker green is Travis Elementary School. Are there any questions about option 1? Option number 2. Option number 2, the change in this is, again, the Jackson attendance zone does not change between option 1 and 2. The sections of Jackson Elementary going to Travis do not change. The one changes that we do have is Riverwood Village would continue to stay at Jane Long Elementary. The Richmond House would come off of Jane Long Elementary and go into Smith, creating a tighter attendance zone for Smith Elementary School. River's Edge, instead of going to Jane Long in this option, would go to Pink. And Rio Vista and Pecan Lakes would continue to go to Austin Elementary. Any questions about option 2? So option 3 is after we receive some feedback. So option 3 has some changes to it. On this, Jackson Elementary School attendance zone does not change. The Kingdom Heights neighborhood stays purple, so it would continue to go to Frost Elementary. The attendance zones around Smith and Jane Long do not change. River's Edge would continue to stay at Austin Elementary. Rio Vista neighborhood would then in turn go to Jane Long. Then Pecan Lakes, Grand River, Brazos Wood, Rivers Forest, Glenwood, Riverside Ranch, Woods Edge, Lakes of Mission Grove would all go to Austin Elementary. The reason the Board of Trustees that the large section around 359 is because when we pulled the one section of Kingdom Heights out, that was roughly to get the same number of students. We'd had to take in that entire area to get the same population of elementary school students to relieve Frost Elementary in this zone option. Are there any questions about option 3?
Yeah. How many kids do we have in Kingdom Heights divided? So how many on the south side, how many on the north side, and then all together?
So I want to say, while Ms. Buchanan's pulling that up, so now we have, we changed demographers so Zonda is now our new demographer. So now we have access to software that gives us these data points in real time, using the data that we send to the state, our enrollment data to the state. And so now we can pinpoint how many secondary students, how many elementary students live in each neighborhood. We don't have it by grade level, it doesn't go that deep. But now, so he's able to pull that out, and so he can answer those questions on the spot, which is something we weren't able to do before, like live in real time.
So currently in the southern section of Kingdom Heights, there's 219 elementary school students. And in the northern section, there's 114.
Okay, so 333. And then how many kids do we have? Because I've heard a lot of different numbers about Pecan Lakes. 50 to 70.
71
71.
elementary school students in Pecan Lakes at this time.
So I don't think I've ever gotten any more emails about option 3 than, I mean, people are very, very against it. Is there a way to create a map that would take all of Kingdom Heights, 333 kids, and does it make sense to move them to Jackson, which is 5 minutes away, and keep Pecan Lakes at Frost?
Chad, if you want to switch over.
What'd she say? No. So in every instance, we divide Kingdom Heights in 2. And I feel like it makes more sense to keep them together. I took the weekend and I drove all of these neighborhoods. I drove through Kingdom Heights and I drove Kingdom Heights to Frost. And on a Saturday, it was 15 minutes to get there. I drove Pecan Lakes to Frost and it took 5 minutes to get there. So I can't imagine on a school morning how long it takes to get to Frost for Kingdom Heights. And I know that's not a popular option to them. I know many of them don't want to go to Jackson. I am wondering if keeping them on the gold track will help alleviate some of those fears of going to Jackson, although Jackson is a very sweet school, and I think it would be wonderful if an entire neighborhood went over there and bolstered that school.
It would completely change the culture of that school for the better.
Yeah.
Well,
So, I've heard a lot of, negative things about Jackson, heard a lot of negative things about the red track. And, I just really want to say that a lot of times when you look at school ratings, it's not a lower quality education that you're talking about. You're talking about at Jackson, I believe the school is almost 93% economically disadvantaged. They live in a food desert. They are almost 40% emergent bilingual. They don't have a PTO. They lack parental involvement. It's hard for kids to get good grades when you're bringing homework in English and your parents speak Spanish. But I just think our job as trustees is to look at the entire picture and seek the welfare of every school and every student. And I just don't want Jackson to get left behind in that process, because not moving any kids to Jackson puts them sub 300. And I know that when we have schools that start operating under 50%, that gets dicey. It's hard to justify keeping a school open. So, I don't know. And I think the way that Kingdom Heights has rallied is admirable. It speaks volumes about Foster. I just think it's incumbent upon the trustees to put all viable options on the table to send to the community.
Mr. Buchanan, can I ask you a question about a neighborhood that is not mine, but I've been hearing a lot from the River's Edge folks lately?
Let him do it. He's fixing the map she asked.
I will stand down.
Ms. Hotzel, this doesn't take into account any other changes? This would just be looking at the moving majority of Jackson into Travis, and then moving the one section, the entire section of Kingdom Heights into Jackson, leaving Pecan Lakes in Frost. Let's try this again. Hopefully it works. But this currently, yes, it would drop Frost attendance. This is the projections from 780, and you can see that it has a pretty steady range between 742 and 780. And Jackson Elementary, with a capacity of 4, whoa. So this is Frost Elementary School. So currently projected for the fall 24 would be 780. It goes down, and then it holds pretty steady between 738, and then it goes back up to 742. Again, I would like to remind the Board of Trustees, anything past fall 27, again, the further projections out, the less accurate those projections are. It's taking a lot of assumptions into. And then Jackson Elementary at the bottom has a capacity of 455 within the building. It's at 392, and the enrollment goes down for a few years and then goes back up. And then even at a 10-year projection right now, it would be at 441 by the fall of 2033. But these projections currently, that's not taking into account anything happening at Pink or Jane Long. We would still have to look at something to be able to create this as a holistic type option.
Mr. Did you take out the Grand River and all of that? Or did you keep that in along with the Kingdom Heights? On map 3, option 3? Because you have all that.
Can you switch back to the PowerPoint?
I have a question about option 3, because
Okay, there's option 3.
okay. So we have all those neighborhoods going all the way up to Lakes of Mission Grove, going all the way over to Austin. What is the bus plan? I mean, that would still. That's what I'm asking.
So yes, the bus plan for this option, everything comes down to 359, goes over to Mason, and then into Plantation, right on Morton League, and take it around to Austin Elementary School.
Okay. But I'm saying if Kingdom Heights were to do like you said, would we need to take all those out of Frost? Okay, but would that change the numbers of what he just showed us?
So let me go back to the numbers that I just showed you for Frost is only if Kingdom Heights comes off of Frost and goes into Jackson.
And nothing else left?
Everything else stays the way it is for Frost
That's the
Elementary School's
question I'm
attendance zone.
asking.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, because I want to make sure we have the right data out there. Go ahead.
As long as Mr. Buchanan is ready, if he's not tinkering with these maps still.
Yes, sir.
I want-
I think this was the area that you were questioning.
Yes, and if I understand it right, it's like 180 elementary kids from that area? Is that correct, that currently go to Austin Elementary?
River's Edge currently has 181 students,
181.
elementary school students within the neighborhood.
So if we take them and put those students at Pink or Jane Long, the question has come to me from the community as Austin Elementary would still be able to handle them capacity-wise. So why move them?
So if you'll go back to the present.
Well, let me just give my commentary since I can and talk to the full board here. I think option 3 is a ridiculous option, as far as transportation. And it seems like it was created to pacify one neighborhood. I'm not saying that shouldn't be considered, but I don't really think it's worthy passing along to the ABC personally.
So to answer your question, why for instance, in option 1, why would River's Edge come out of Austin?
Why would River's Edge come out of Austin, I
To
guess
make
is-
room for Pecan Lakes. That was the reasoning behind,
So, but you're looking at option 1.
right, in option 1, Pecan Lakes is going to Austin, so we need to get students off, so that's where River's Edge came off. In option 2, again, Pecan Lakes was going to Austin, so we need to get students off, and that's where River's Edge came off here. And then in option 3, Pecan Lakes, again, would go to Austin, and then we would be pulling Rio Vista off to get to Jane Long to make room for the Pecan Lakes section. So that was the gist of moving.
Okay, I'm studying this now. And if you look at Austin, the projections with option 1, and you add 181 kids, you're still within the building's capacity, are we not?
Option 1?
Yeah.
Yes, Austin has a building capacity of 625. It's 569. for this current year, but then you see it drops to 462, 460, 457, 454.
So the 462 plus the 181 is still within the parameters of what that building can hold.
But you would be, if I put 161 back in there, it's 500, it's 600 and, I mean, you're right there at the limit.
But if you take Pecan Lakes out, then it's about 100.
Right, so that was the tipping point in that. So if Pecan Lakes were to not be a part of it, then no, Austin Elementary, you would look at the bottom. It's at 559 or 569, it would be 559, 557, 553, 550.
But yet then you could leave Rio Vista there.
That's correct, you could leave,
And how many, I hate to ask you this question, but the number at Rio Vista.
159. It's 159.
That's
I have it written down.
So would everyone
it's
be,
159 students.
would everyone be okay with sending that option to the ABC, or to surveys? Taking, the one I just asked for.
Right, but wouldn't we have to
Is
move
replacing
Pecan Lake?
option 3?
I don't think we can,
Yeah, let's,
that would take a motion, wouldn't it? Or does that take a motion?
But wait, wouldn't we need to make a few more changes in order for that to?
The
So
attorney,
is our lawyer here?
our attorney.
In this, let me see, he changed.
Say that again. Can she, ask your question one more time?
Can we remove option 3 that we currently have and take this new option we just created and send that for survey?
But the question is what, taking the consensus right now, would they have to
Oh,
do it,
oh,
would they have to do it within the motion, or can they do a consensus now? How they?
Okay.
Thanks.
Can I speak for just a minute, though, since this is my area? It's been really difficult because this is my area. I've lived in a lot of these different communities through the years. I lived in Pecan Lakes the last time that they did or attempted to do a leveling. I guess it was leveling back then. It's a long time ago. So I understand that it's an emotional situation. It's been difficult reading all of the emails because I feel bad for everybody. I know that everyone's neighborhood is the most important neighborhood when you're living in that neighborhood, so I get it. Now, that being said, just a couple of things that I wanted to bring up is I did ask for another option for Kingdom Heights because my biggest concern about Kingdom Heights is students, parents, and our buses pulling out onto 723, and I don't know if anybody's been over there whenever it's school traffic time, but to pull out on 723 and turn left is almost impossible. There's been fatalities there, there's been terrible accidents there, and so I don't feel comfortable with that. I know I'm just one vote here, but I think it needs to be said that that's a very dangerous intersection. TxDOT is working on 723 now, but it's going to be 3 to 5 years before a light is put there. So I'm just putting that on the table, that's a very dangerous intersection, and it's scary when it's your kids going that way on 723. So I'm just gonna say it. And I live one neighborhood over in Riverside Ranch, and it's the same thing. We don't have a light, you're taking your life in your own hands turning that way. So I think that's a lot of people's concerns. So that being said, I've been asked by a lot of the community members in Kingdom Heights if you can give me a map that has Kingdom Heights going to Bentley. Because I know we're gonna have it is now, but next year, I don't think it will be when the new schools are open, I believe. I'd just like to see that option because it was asked for by the community.
Is there a way to just put an officer at that light during school traffic hours on our dime? Or is there a way to put a traffic light there on our dime?
The developer is supposed to put the light in. but they're just not gonna put it in until that section of 723 has been widened. So, they did petition it. There was a petition that floated around a couple of, well, it was probably a few years ago. But that was a agreement that they made years back, and he's gonna do it, the developer is gonna do it, but it's just, he's not gonna do it until after 723 comes online. That, we got a blinky light there, and that's, we got it.
Yeah, to answer your question, trustee House, so there is a way, we can have an officer there, but also we would start working with TxDOT and the city, and the county to try to get a light there. But in full transparency, TxDOT, they have their own timeline. I say, that's the nicest way I can say it. They have their own timeline. And so, sometimes it takes a year just to even get a school zone sign put up. Because it's like 5 different crews have to come out and put up the pole, then put up the sign, they run electricity, and then just like, it takes a while. So, if the board decides to do that, of course, we will work hard to make sure that's a safe intersection. But also, I would start to now engage the community to help us being that voice. Because when I send an email, I'm the paid advocate. He's just a superintendent, he's supposed to do that. But when we have citizens who start petitioning and calling and sending emails and having conversations with the folks that make the decisions, then we can get some traction. And so if that is an option that the board decides to choose, then we will work hard, but I will also ask the community to help us in that, because we would need a lot more voices so we can shorten TxDOT's timeline.
Yeah, I know that they are doing, the first section of 723, I believe, is Beetle Lane to 1093, so that's gonna happen first.
But also, that cost, if we're gonna speed up that timeline, that cost will be passed to the district. So if we're gonna ask for anything, then, we would bring back to the board to amend the budget, because that will cost us. And so I'm not sure how much a traffic light costs, but it's not cheap. It's not cheap. You ready?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Thank you.
So by moving the Kingdom Heights area directly into Bentley, they're projected next year to be 1,024, 1,111, 1,203, 1,286, 1,404, 1,511, 1,573, 1,607, 1,618, 1,630.
The capacity, that is the capacity with or without portables?
Without portables, right now.
Without portables, okay.
I'd have to refer back to it. It's 1,100, I think, something like that is what we currently have there
Okay.
for capacity. So it would more than likely be capped in the fall of '26.
Does that have, with Terrell opening up, does that pool?
Yes, sir. So,
So with Terrell opening, those numbers are still that high?
yes, sir, because in this projections, you have Terrell, oh, come on, computer. Terrell Elementary School's open up at 594, and then it goes to 600 and something, 722, and then you can see by 2031, it's over capacity as well.
And how many subdivisions are opening up over by Bentley right now? Because they're building like crazy.
So we have Sorrento, which is a D.R. Horton, which is on the west side of 359. Then you also have Candela South, which is opening up, along with Candela itself. Those are all areas that are developing. And then you also have Foster Farms, which I don't know when it's going to break ground, but it is also in the Bentley attendance zone.
And we won't know till our demographers come and talk to us, or do we know yet how many students that might be being pulled by next year or even the year after?
This software has our demographers' data populated into it for their projections. But yes, ma'am, every time they update it, it gets updated within our new software that we have. So now this software continually gets updated with what those projections look like, depending on if they're closing more houses or if they're closing less, depending on the market in each of our areas. Because some of our areas are growing faster than others as they continue to put houses in.
Because they usually assume how many houses are being built, and then they take a formula to figure out how many kids possibly.
That's correct,
So
ma'am.
it's not an exact science, but they're pretty close.
Yes, ma'am.
If we can make a note that when these developers are building houses in new neighborhoods, they do not have to go to the schools and say, hey, are you ready for us? We can make a note of that, that there is no legal thing we can do, or no, we
Yeah.
can't put any, there's no state law, nothing out there that
The
says you
county
have
cannot
to.
stop a developer from
Right.
developing if they're following all of the rules.
A city can put a 30-day moratorium, but a lot of the growth that we're experiencing is in county ETJ or unincorporated land. So for the public's sake, getting a light, making sure there's sidewalks, making sure there's places to walk, street lights, all this kind of stuff. We are responsible for what's on the campus property. We cannot force a community or a developer to say, wait till we're ready.
And there is going to be another elementary school by Tomas, but I think we already know which neighborhoods need to go into that, from Hubenek and,
Yes, ma'am, that's in our next presentation after
Yeah, I
our
know.
leveling. Yes, ma'am.
it's just, there's no easy answer to this. My concern too is if we did something like that, then we're not helping Jackson. At what point are we almost going to have to close Jackson Elementary completely if we don't do anything at all to bring more students there?
Well, I want to be very cautious about having that conversation. I don't want to alarm like the Jackson alumni, Jackson community, and saying that we are going to close them. And so I don't want to do that because I know that's how things happen, right? You know, we say that, and all of a sudden, next board tomorrow night, I have all of Jackson here saying, don't close us. And so, but with any school, not just Jackson, but with any school, we want to make sure it operates at least over 50% capacity. Because that's just us being good stewards of taxpayer dollars. And so if it's not, you know, then now we're paying too much money to operate this campus. And then if you close down a campus in a district that's one of the fastest growing in the state of Texas, that just sends a mixed signal to our community, saying you're shutting down a school, but now you're gonna go out for a bond and ask for new schools, right? And so we wanna make sure that we have all of those campuses fully utilized. And so as I've been saying since June, this is a very emotional topic, and logic and emotions, like oil and water, they don't mix. And so we try to talk about all this earlier before the emotion got involved, so people can understand the rationale behind it all. And so now that it's emotional, it's very hard to get that across. And so I just ask everyone to think about the logic behind it, because eventually we do have to make sure all of our campuses are fully at capacity. They're utilized fully. That way, when I go to the voters and say, hey, I need another $1.5 billion to build another 12 schools, that they see that we've been fully transparent. We're using all the facilities that we have. I didn't hit me. I don't know what happened. Anyway, I'm just talking loud. So anyway, that we're using all the facilities that we have, that we're doing everything we can to make sure that the community understands that we can be trusted with their knowledge, right? And doing everything possible to make sure that we're doing that. And so again, I know it's a very emotional decision, but again, it's a decision that has to be made as some shape, form, and fashion in some capacity, eventually.
What Trustee Hotzel made, the note she made earlier about Jackson, I've done a lot of praying on what I should say about this, because in my professional career, it's community development and work for a nonprofit that serves in that area. A lot of the emails that came in have been kind of broke my heart a little bit about we can't go to that community. I can't walk unarmed in this community, and that's not okay. So I've done a lot of praying and speaking and decided not to go hard in the paint on this kind of stuff just yet. But we got to look at our students, look at our schools, and look at where we're going as a greater good kind of conversation, a big picture conversation. And I get passionate about this, so that's all I'm going to say right now. We'll go into it later, but we got to look at full community health. We got to look at access to prenatal care. We got to look at access to early childhood education. We got to look at all these other factors that play into community health and what makes up grades on a sheet of paper. The TEA decides the TEA is probably going to change their rankings anyways. So there's a lot of other factors that go into grading of a school and what makes up a community, what makes up a capacity of the community. So we'll go hard later, but right now I just want to say that when we look at our communities and the families and the students that we get to serve, not that we have to serve, that we get to serve, we need to look at them as individuals. We need to look at them as the next voters that we have, the next people that are coming in. So if we're coming in and like, you know, we're working and serving in a community and we're gonna put our students in a community, and my kids, that's what we did when we moved here. We're gonna come in, we're gonna get involved, we're gonna start a PTO at Jane Long. It's thriving now, so all this, we're gonna do this intentionally. So I challenge our community to look at it from that lens of like, you know what, I get to do this. This is awesome. Like, my kids get to have new friends, my kids, all this kind of stuff. So that's all I'll say for now.
Well, we don't have to make a motion, so do we just say we want to move forward
Just have a map created.
with a map being created that shows Kingdom Heights to Jackson, Pecan Lakes stays at Frost, River's Edge stays at Austin? Did I get that right?
So that's what we can do. So we have a meeting tomorrow night, and so the direction from the trustees is for tomorrow night's meeting is to see a map that has, say that one more time,
All of Kingdom Heights to Jackson,
okay?
Pecan Lakes stays at Frost, and River's Edge stays at Austin. And all the other, everything else stays the same.
Okay. Got that? Yes, sir. So we'll have that map for the trustees tomorrow night.
Okay, thank you.
About Riverwood Village.
Where are they now?
They're at Long.
They're right there on the, no, they're currently at Long, and so there was an option to put them at Pink. My place is right there on that train track, and that train track comes by every 17 minutes. And so if we can eliminate buses going back and forth, I've been stuck on the other side of that train track for literally 4.5 hours one time, just because that train has stopped. So, we can look at maybe try to cut that down. There's a whole other systematic stuff there with the train track.
Yeah, I just don't know how they feel, that neighborhood feels about it either, about wanting to stay where they are. I don't know. I don't know what the numbers look like.
I don't think I've heard anything from,
And they're still developing that community too, so there's still some greenfield there. Yeah, I think there are some like younger, I think.
So let me clarify a couple things on the agenda. So, and it's for, you know, community members. When you look at the agenda, there's an item, not on tonight, but tomorrow night, it's called a future action item. And so the future action item works as a workshop a lot of times, but so my philosophy as superintendent is I never want the board to see something. We normally send out our board packets on Thursday or Friday the week before. And typically what happens is most school districts say, here board, here is this packet of information. And now on Monday or Tuesday night, you need to vote for it, right? In my head, that's not enough time. And so we have a future action item. And so anything the trustees are gonna vote on, they have seen the month prior. So now they have an entire month to look at it, ask questions, get input from the community. And so whenever you see a future action item, it says that the next that it'll be taken as action the next month. And so even tomorrow night, and so Trustee Halto asked for a new map. And so it may be under future action items. It doesn't mean action will be taken tomorrow night. It means action will be taken, could be taken the next month. Unless they change it the next month and then be taken the month after that. And so, which is fine. I mean, you know, it's your decision to make, and I want the trustees to make the decision that they feel best comfortable with the information. So that's good. I'm glad you're asking these questions. And so even tomorrow night, when Mr. Buchanan has the map that's been asked to be revised, if you want to make changes to that, you can still make changes to that. That's why you're elected. You're the trustees. That's why you're elected to do that. And so, you know, I want you to feel comfortable asking as many questions as you need so you can make the decision that you feel best in your heart to make. And so I just want to make sure the community knows that they're taking action tomorrow night. They're going to vote on this tomorrow night. It's a future action item, and a future action item means they will take action on it the next month. So if you can help spread that word too, that will help me out tremendously.
I also wanted to make sure that all of these communities know that the ABC committee will also be able to come up with their own map to present to the board along with these other options. So it's not gonna just be these, it's gonna be at least one more probably that committee comes up with, which is made of our community members that are impacted.
And that these maps are only to give the ABC a place
Kind of a
to work-
starting point, yes.
to work from. And it's, even if we vote to send it, it doesn't mean that we're voting that we like all three maps.
Right.
With that? All right.
Can I?
Go ahead. Go ahead. You got it, sir.
Can you switch over? Just to make sure I got the information that you requested correct. So currently, the map that we've drawn up, all of Kingdom Heights would go down to Jackson. The section around Jackson would now go to Travis. Riverswood sits right here, would go to Pink. Austin's attendance zone would not change. The only thing that would change in Frost would be Kingdom Heights would go down to Jackson, and then Jane Long and Smiths would not change in this map.
Is that accurate? That's what you guys, that's what you want to see tomorrow night?
Okay, we'll draft up the options and get it prepared for tomorrow. Thank you.
All right.
Okay, trustees, so to close out this portion of the leveling presentation, because we do have another leveling presentation, the survey will be slated to launch in January. The ABC for the Central Lamar leveling, those meetings would be February 19th and February 21st. And again, the following trustees would have the opportunity to appoint members to the ABC: Bronsell, Danziger, Hubenak, Lambert, and Welch.
Can you put the timeline back up too, please? Good for next one.
Okay, so the last part of our presentation for this section addresses the southeast portion of Lamar CISD and impacts the following trustees: Hotzel and Welch. And let's look at the projections for these campuses. We're talking about Campbell, Carter, Dickinson, Hutchinson.
I'm sorry. We should have done public.
Oh.
Public participation. I'm sorry.
But this is just one, we're still in the same, yeah, we're still in the same presentation.
Let's
Oh, we're still the
split it.
same one? Okay.
But
Well,
let's,
it's
but
up
let's
to the
split it, man. It's completely
It's up to
different
you.
parts of the,
Do you have them separated that way?
It's one.
I'm sorry. I thought we were mentioning it. I'm sorry. No,
That-
they're not separate. I'm sorry.
That might be nice, though, to, if someone, if we can separate it out, to be able to do it that
Can we
way.
take a break so she can get?
Yes, let's take a break, and she can, Ms. Barbara can straighten that out a little bit and take a little break. 10 minutes?
She'll say that. No, she'll say that in a minute. 10 minutes.
We're back in open set, well, we're not back in open. We're back in session.
Yes.
It is 8:05 PM, and let's see. Here we are. This is the time, oh, is that me saying? Okay. This is the time in the meeting where the public has the opportunity to comment. If you're interested in commenting on the elementary schools leveling process and draft options for, we're just going to do Central, right? Central, which is Austin Elementary School, Frost Elementary School, Jackson Elementary School, Long Elementary School, Pink Elementary School, Smith Elementary School, and Travis Elementary School. And submitted a public participation card prior to the start of the meeting. Please come forward when Ms. Johnson calls you up to speak.
It is the desire of the Lamar CISD Board of Trustees to appropriately and effectively fulfill its governance role in accordance to best practices for quality organizations and to have the applicable provisions of the Texas Education Code. Trustees also desire to afford an opportunity for input from the public. Public participation allows individuals to address the board regarding posted agenda items. Public comment allows individuals to address the board regarding non-agenda items. Members of the community who wish to address the board regarding an agenda item that has been posted to the December 11th, 2023 special board meeting agenda must have completed a comment card and submitted it before the presiding officer called the meeting to order. Public participation will be limited to comments about items listed on the posted special board meeting agenda. All patrons desiring to speak and who have completed a public participation form will be heard during the public participation portion of the meeting prior to consideration of an agenda topic. Each speaker tonight will be given 2 minutes to address the board. If 2 or more individuals are speaking on the same topic, the district has strongly encouraged speakers to consolidate their comments to allow for more time on that topic. Speakers must address the board from the provided podium unless a special accommodation has been requested and approved. Each speaker is to present their remarks to the board and not to the audience. School board meetings are meetings held in public but are not public meetings. While the board values hearing from members of the public, trustees may not answer questions or respond to comments. Speakers may not engage in dialogue with the trustees. Please state your name when you come forward. Our first speaker tonight is Jessica Roberts.
Good evening. My name is Jessica Roberts, and I wanted to give an option, a new map option, which it looks like is already in the works. But our community believes that this option would draw attendance zones in a way that supports efficient, effective use of school facilities, consider the proximity to campus, and address the overcrowding at present. We believe zoning for Austin Elementary should remain as it currently sits. Austin is already underutilized campus with 4 empty classrooms not being used, so reducing its student population would only increase that. When considering proximity, Austin is the closest to all the communities that are currently zoned to it. In order to alleviate frost, we propose moving all of Kingdom Heights to Jackson. We feel that with the amount of students that would move from Kingdom Heights to Jackson, that it would have a positive influence on the culture of Jackson and actually help that school transition into a higher rating scale. It would offer the maximum relief to frost, and geographically, it is the closest elementary school to Kingdom Heights. With proper support from the staff and the administration, we feel that Jackson could be a thriving school with the students from Kingdom Heights. This option would not affect, our proposal is that this option would not affect the track for Kingdom Heights, which has already been suggested that they would remain gold track, which I think would help alleviate a lot of concern from those homeowners and parents. The movement for Kingdom Heights would leave Pecan Lakes where it is. There are smaller changes between schools to help balance out population. You can still move like the Riverwood community to Pink and help balance out Pink's population. You can still move the Brittany Square apartments and those sections related to,
Your time is up. Thank
Sorry.
you.
Do you mind leaving that map on the table, though? Can we have that? Just leave right there on the table. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Brian Hubbard.
Good evening, Board. I had a speech prepared, and most of what the topics we covered tonight have already been covered. The only topic for me that is a major concern is I live in the Kingdom Heights community, and what Mandy had talked about earlier was the traffic getting onto 723. It's the largest portion south of 359 that is a 55-mile-an-hour zone where we all have to make a left turn to get to Jackson. 55 miles an hour at that time, most people wait 10, 15, 20 minutes. One car gets out. That is a absurd amount of time for a bus to enter the roadway. For a bus to enter that roadway, they can't get up to speed as fast. Potential of getting hit, major accidents, exponentially higher. So honestly, I don't need that much time to let you know that is a danger. Children. These are your children. These are our children. We just don't want that. So, thank you.
Our next speaker is Christina Meyer.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for letting us speak tonight. I really appreciate it. Thank you for suggesting your map. We've emailed back and forth, and I thoroughly appreciate you trying to keep Pecan Lakes within the Frost schools. So I just wanted to address Kingdom Heights. They're a growing community. We have done some research. There's approximately 770 homes still to be built in that area, which would approximate to the district's demographic average number per student household of 423 students in the near future. And I'm guessing their demographic per student household is quite larger than that. The expansion of 723 is imminent. We know that's gonna happen. I think the bigger question to address in the future, I know the traffic light's important, but I think you need to look at construction that's gonna happen in that area as well in the near future that's gonna put kids in danger. And I think by moving, as Jessica had said, moving Kingdom Heights to Jackson, culturally, it will change the school. It will change the dynamic of that little school to more higher rated school. It'll help the students grow and it will lift them up. So I think moving Kingdom Heights to Jackson is a really great initiative for that campus. And ultimately, I think in the future, Kingdom Heights will probably need their own elementary school based off the growth in that area along 723. So that's my recommendation. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Vanessa Marsters.
Good evening, Board. We presented this proposal to the Board, and as Jessica stated, and the map is pretty much what the Board decided for the new option, which we thank you for. So I am here as a representative for River's Edge. We are currently zoned to Austin Elementary and would like to stay there. River's Edge has already been leveled once before, which makes us unique to the other schools being proposed. We were moved from Frost to Austin. Option 1 and 2 moves Austin a second time. Having 4 empty classrooms, Austin is currently under capacity. Moving River's Edge would further underutilize the school. Moving only River's Edge from the 359 corridor isolates them, which should not be the case. Thank you for amending the option 3, again, to keep River's Edge at Austin. We are in support of the Tomas rezoning, option 2 and 3 as well, presented this evening. Thank you very much for your consideration.
Our next speaker is Melissa Bryant.
Hi. I think most of my questions were addressed with kind of seeming like we were going to get rid of option 3. But my question with option 3 was just the logistics of the bus routes, because Pecan Grove is a 1 entrance and 1 exit neighborhood off 359 that doesn't have stoplights inside of the neighborhood either. And there's kids that are hit on their bikes every year in that neighborhood because it's a big walking community and biking community. And so my question was, we're having trouble with buses as is and kids getting home super late. So what is really going to look like when you have all of the communities from 359 driving into Pecan Grove? And what's the traffic going to look like on 359 for commuters going to work? And like, it's a nightmare with option 3. And that was really just my only point. So thank you guys for looking into getting rid of option 3.
Our next speaker is Elizabeth Howell.
Thank you, Board. All of my points were fully addressed with the new option 3 that Ms. Holzel presented. So thank you for presenting that, and I appreciate your time. Thank you.
The next speaker, Lance Williams.
My name is Lance Williams. I am here to represent my neighborhood of 327 homes in Pecan Lakes. I do appreciate your consistent humility for listening to the entire board. and also to the further of option 3 as well tonight. I'm the parent of 3 kids, one at Frost, one at Briscoe, and one at Foster. And I have again been designated here by my neighbors at Pecan Lakes to help you see the proposal to re-level the central part of the district by moving Pecan Lakes from Frost will result in one thing, and that is maximum loss with minimal gain. That is not a statement about Austin. That is not a statement about any other neighborhood. That is not a statement about any other tract. It is simply a focus on our neighborhood of Pecan Lakes. And I say that because your demographers have us at 71, and I think that's a really good shot at it. We have such a small neighborhood that we've been able to canvass it in less than a week with a handful of parents. And the 71 students that we can figure out after staff and faculty are considered, with the 9 fifth graders moving on into Wertheimer and only 3 preschoolers that we have in the neighborhood now moving into kindergarten, that leaves us at 53 students for next year in 24 and 25. And so when I say maximum loss and minimal gain, I mean that only 53 students would be moved to do anything over at Austin. I appreciate the fact of wanting to make room at Frost. We've been there for a long time. And at the same time, I would agree with Trustee Hotzel's words via email that say this, quote, "Pecan Lakes is an established community with a long-standing presence at Frost, and I do not believe that your small enrollment numbers make a big enough dent in this leveling to justify a move." I appreciate that personal response to many of our neighbors, and we could not agree with you more wholeheartedly with that sentiment. Again, just to summarize what my statement is, maximum loss, minimal gain. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Mary Barnes.
I have a visual aid that I would love for you to pass around if you can. Thank you. Hello, thank you for being here, and I also want to acknowledge that how much it means to my neighborhood to remain on the gold track and be able to attend Foster High School. That's very important to all of us, so I appreciate that the options now reflect that for our neighborhood. Thank you. And thank you, Mandy, for being a voice, listening to all of our concerns, and being so responsive to our neighborhood. We all appreciate you. I am Mary Barnes. I'm a resident of Kingdom Heights since 2016 and a mom since 2014. I'm here tonight to express my opposition to options 1 and 2, which would both split my neighborhood in half, causing an immediate and negative impact on my community. It would also send my children from Frost Elementary, ranked at the top of the district, to one of the lowest ranking schools in the district. This is not a comparable move. We ask for a 4th option where Kingdom Heights can remain as one community and an elementary campus that is comparably rated to Frost, our current school. I know that doesn't exist, but I'm still gonna go with what I wrote. I have a visual aid you can pass around. These are old maps, obviously. This was the district plan as of August of 2020. You can see Kingdom Heights being rezoned to Bentley Elementary in 2022. That was the projected rezoning at the time. You can also see the long-term plans of adding a new elementary campus near Foster High School, projected to open in 2026, which we know is now going to be closer to the Tomas campus in potentially 2027. I want to say we all know why we didn't move to Bentley last year. It's because of the overgrowth and the overcrowding. I want to point out this is not the fault of Kingdom Heights, and this is not the fault of our children. This should have been the moment when the district began looking at other viable and comparable long-term options for Kingdom Heights. Our neighborhood is still growing. It's projected to have 500 more homes. Moving us to Jackson will eventually overpopulate Jackson in the very near future. So we're moving from a situation at an overcrowded school at Frost to potentially within the next 2 to 3 years an overcrowded school at Jackson. Again, the ratings do not compare, and I personally don't feel that my children should be part of an experiment to see if we can improve a different school's low ratings. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Erica Rosales.
Okay, so my name is Erica Rosales. I have 2 kids at Frost. I've been very I've been into the school, so like I volunteer, I do everything. I also subbed this year at Frost Elementary, and I have the insight of what happens in that school when it comes to safety. Safety keeps getting thrown in everybody's face, but in reality, if safety was the main priority, they would worry about what's happening at Frost. Right now, Frost, as I sub in the classrooms, I am tripping over backpacks. The kids have no space to sit there and actually feel comfortable in their seats, especially with the fourth grade classrooms with kids my size. We have no space in there. If there is an actual emergency, no one is gonna sit there and be able to be safe in that classroom. If I had to, me personally, if I had to sit there and save students, it would be a very hard time to try to sit there and tuck and hide or do something like that to keep everybody safe. The bathrooms are a horrible situation at Frost. There's kids that are having accidents daily because there are approximately 36 bathrooms throughout the whole school. That's 36 bathrooms for 1,075 students. That's 16 bathrooms for girls, 16 bathrooms for boys. I asked my children before I left, I said, Mommy's gonna talk about safety. What is something that bothers you at your school? They love their teachers. Their teachers are amazing, but their teachers are tired, they say. They say their teachers work hard and there's so much that they have to do. They say, my first grader said, Mommy, you know what bothers me? I have to take bathroom breaks with my class and I can't go to the bathroom when I want sometimes because I share it with fifth graders. Fifth graders don't even have their own pod to sit there and use the bathroom. I personally think that's a safety issue, and if it was all about safety, these things would be what should be like on the agenda and what should be really mattering. And as far as like what I personally think, I think it's more of a judgmental thing. And the city of Rosenberg is an amazing city. The people of Rosenberg are big supporters. They're amazing people, and you should not judge anybody by the way they look, the way they live.
Your time is up, sorry.
Okay. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Rebecca Steinmetz.
Hi, good evening. A lot of what I intended to talk to you about has been talked about, but I want to speak to a couple of the comments that were made, particularly by Ms. Hotzel and Mr. Welch. Hope I'm saying everybody's names correctly. There has been a lot of opposition to option 3, and I stand in support of everyone in opposition or opposing option 3. I live in a small cluster of homes in an unrestricted acreage community off of 359. I'm immediately adjacent to Lakes of Mission Grove and Woods Edge. Rezoning our area to Austin Elementary presents a similar left-turning danger as we turn left onto 359 at Holmes Road, which would apply to Lakes of Mission Grove, Woods Edge, everyone in my little cluster of the community, as well as Richland Park. It's often referred to as Dead Man's Curve because it is a 55-mile-an-hour speed limit and it is a blind curve where you cannot see anyone coming. I take my daughter to Foster High School every morning, and as I'm making a right turn there, that line stacks up very long because even making a right turn at that intersection at school time is very difficult. If somebody happens to be there making a left turn, I turn my car around and I find another way to get to Foster High School because you could be there for, as somebody else mentioned, 20, 30 minutes. It would literally be impossible for people to make that left turn getting to Austin. I've also lived in Pecan Grove. I was actually born and raised in this community. I share the concerns about Plantation Drive, bringing buses and cars down Plantation Drive, down Morton League in order to access Austin Elementary. I find that to be incredibly concerning. And I really think we have to look at an option where the foundational communities that were zoned to Frost, those relationships are preserved. My immediate community is what Frost was built for. Frost was built to serve my community, and I think it is unthinkable that the backbone of that school would be stripped
Sorry, your
away
time is
to
up.
another school.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Leslie Gracia.
Hello, thank you. I am here to talk on behalf of my neighborhood, Kingdom Heights. And a lot of the points I wanted to touch on has been scrapped by this new option 3. I still want to, voice my concerns that I think option 3 would be the more fair and equitable solution. I don't believe that Kingdom Heights should be put on the chopping block. Why are we the scapegoats? Respectfully, Long Meadow Farms, Mr. Lambert, is not, Jane Long is not the same as Jackson Elementary. We already know that there's a safety concern just getting there. Mandy, you need to go to Jackson during a regular business day to see what the traffic is going over that bridge back and forth. It's not going to be a 5-minute commute. Not only that, nobody has mentioned working parents. I called the 5 daycares today that service Frost children where our kids go, our babies, our K-5 kids. They're not gonna be able to help us anymore. They're not gonna be able to serve us. I called daycares in that area, and there's a lot of them that will not even pick up at Jackson right now. And if you just go and look at the numbers on the Texas Board of Health and Services, there is a clear discrepancy in childcare. You're disrupting 400 people's lives. The logistics of it is a nightmare. It's not as just simple as sending our kids to Jackson and that's it. We are uprooting and disrupting all of our lives trying to find quality care for all of our kids. I don't think it's fair. We're having to find new daycares 10 miles. It's 10 miles from Jackson to Frost. The people that were originally in option 3, they won't have that issue. So thank you.
Our next speaker is Cynthia Jeter.
Good evening, Board. Thank you for your time tonight and giving us an opportunity to speak. My name is Cynthia Jeter, and I am a current Frost parent. I have 2 kids there currently and 1 who will be there next year as well, for a total of 3 kids on that campus. Capacity is defined, if you look it up, it says the maximum amount that something can contain. Frost Elementary is at capacity. Our max capacity is 854 students inside of our building. As of today, we have 1,078 children, with an addition of 100 staff members serving them. This means that we have 224 children in temporary buildings. And as Mr. Welch said, they are temporary, and we are not in the business of keeping temporary buildings in business. Frost is quite literally groaning under the weight of the human beings who are inside the building. Meanwhile, there are other campuses in our area who are operating at less than 50%. That is less than half of what they are able to hold. So here's a picture of what that looks like. That means that somewhere very near to Frost Elementary, there are campuses with empty classrooms. That is unfathomable at our campus. There are campuses that have backpack hooks with nothing on them. There are bookshelves that are empty. There are empty desks in those buildings, and there are empty chairs. They are part of our district, and those things are simply waiting for children to fill that space. Frost needs relief, and we can have it. If we utilize what this district has available right now, Frost can be relieved.
I'm sorry, your time's up.
Our next speaker is Chris Dial.
How are you doing, everybody? My name's Chris Deal. It's all good. It gets messed up all the time. It sounds to me, just speaking with River's Edge in my community, and hearing everybody else tonight, nobody wants their kids to be an experiment in everything that's going on, leveling, zoning, whatever the case may be. Hearing Pecan Lakes and going to Frost and the Frost issues of being overcrowded. Again, us being in Austin, it does not make sense to take kids out of a school that it's currently underutilized and move them, and then you're just putting it right back in and saying, okay, we're right back at the same area that we were at. It doesn't make sense. Going back to the thing that makes the most sense, when considering the proximity to schools, the proposal that we had with this map, I believe it's with this map, is I get it, but Kingdom Heights being in Jackson, this is the neighborhood that is the closest, in its entirety, would provide the most relief when it comes to Frost, when it comes to possibly moving kids from Frost in an overcrowded area into Austin. We're currently at 79% utilization. It doesn't make sense. Speaking from another point of us possibly being moved to either Pink or Jane Long, I have heard that if we were to be moved to Pink, we would have 5 teachers from Austin that would also be moved. You're robbing Peter to pay Paul. It makes no sense what we're doing with possibly taking all of these changes when there's one that makes the most sense. From a safety standpoint, I've lived here 31 years. I would not go walk in the areas of Pink or Jane Long right now, or Jackson, that area. It's a safety issue. I can't expect my daughter to be in an area where there's been issues, where there's been assaults. I believe it was 10 assaults last year at Pink alone. That terrifies me as a father. So I would just ask that y'all take into consideration those issues as well when it comes to safety. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Tara Petty.
Hello. My name is Tara Petty, and I am a resident in Rivers Edge. I have 3 children and counting that will go through Lamar, okay? So I'm going to try to talk as fast as I can. I'm pretty sure that we can all agree that tensions are high due to the fact that this is a personal matter for all in attendance listening, whether in person or online. For us, our children are the ones that matter. We want our children to have the best and be the best. For the board, you all are elected by us for every single child. So I ask that you look at the information provided and make decisions based off of the mission and values of the school board. Currently, we are sitting here all due to the capacity issues at Frost. Safety is an issue that must be addressed with the utmost urgency. Leveling does need to take place. However, it should start with those at Frost. If Frost can move students to attain the common goal of safety, that should be done. Why am I addressing the board? Because currently my neighborhood of Rivers Edge at the Brazos is being considered to be moved. While we would love to assist with a capacity issue, the capacity issue at Frost can be obtained without moving our children. If the board would like for Rivers Edge to assist with the capacity issue, we would like to do so by asking that our neighborhood be moved to the gold track. Currently, Lamar High is at capacity and will remain at capacity for years with all of the current maps that are out. Just like I know we are here for Frost Elementary safety, I would like for you all to consider the safety of the children of Rivers Edge as well. As a licensed clinical social worker, I must bring forward not only the physical safety, but the safety of our children's mental health and well-being is at stake here. I also want to address that the superintendent said that our schools need to be fully utilized, and leaving our students at Austin will help attain that goal. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Mina Salris. Okay.
All right, good evening, everyone. This is Mina Sawirs. I'm here to represent my community, Kingdom Heights. So allow me just to talk numbers. During your previous meeting that you have discussed, you mentioned that we got about 219 kids just on the old section, so which are now enrolled in Frost Elementary. With the proposal of option 1 and 2, moving them to Jackson, which is already at 400 kids this year, proposing that maybe next year it will drop about 28% to 287 kids. That being said, adding our kids to whatever is there is gonna put it at capacity next year or in the coming 2 years, and then we will need to be rezoned again. So I don't know what we're trying to get here by moving us from one school to the other. It's gonna be the same at the end of the day with either we are overcrowding in Frost or in Jackson. That's the first thing. The other thing, if we go to the previous meeting, all the other regions of the district were providing another option of adding a new school, which is rezoning. When it came to the central district, what was offered is just leveling. I understand that you have underoccupied schools like Jackson, but at the same time, I wouldn't like my kids to be moved to Jackson just as as the expression says, a guinea pig, just to see if this is gonna increase the rating or move the school forward. The last point I would like to address, when we were talking about the criteria for rezoning, I feel like we are failing on many objects or many aspects. The first thing, the objective of rezoning is to work in the best interest of the kid. So I don't know how is this gonna be achieved with moving our kids from Frost Elementary as 118 ranking to a 1673 ranking school. I'm talking only academic. I'm not talking about any safety concerns. The other thing also that was
Sorry,
mentioned.
sir, your time's up.
All right, thank you.
Our next speaker is Chris Hawkins. Nope. Okay. That is all.
All right, trustees, so as we need to take we already voted on that, so the next one. Okay, all right, good, all right. So as we transition now to our southeast portion, let me take a point. As a superintendent, you know, I'm the #1 advocate for Lamar CISD and all 45,000 students and 6,000 staff members. And so, you know, I've been hearing quite a bit of information. And so I just want to say that I definitely want to speak on behalf of Principal Smith and her staff at Jackson and the parents and students in Jackson. Jackson, you know, our accountability rating changed this year. And so if you don't know, it's changing, and there's some litigation behind it, and there's a whole lot of stuff behind it. A lot of adult drama behind that. But I do want to say is that under our new accountability system, Jackson actually is a B-rated school system. And actually on our new accountability system, Lamar CISD is a B-rated school system. So Jackson is on point with Lamar CISD under our new system. And so I just want to say that because I'm sure I have staff members and the principal and assistant principal and the counselor and child nutrition workers, everyone now watching that, hearing how bad of a job they're doing. And I want to make sure that I send the opposite message, that we as a team of 8 send the opposite message and really make it clear and understand that Jackson is moving up. They're a B-rated school, a school. And so my job is to make sure that I don't care if you go to school in this room, is that you get the top-notch education that we're supposed to give you, and we take care of your kid, we make them safe, we feed them, and we get them home, right? That's my job. And so I hear these things, and so now I'm taking notes to make sure I go back and talk with the team to make sure that we're addressing some of these concerns that you have. But I just want to make sure that I say on the microphone that I'm very proud of the job that Principal Smith and her staff, they're doing at Jackson, because they deserve that, right? They deserve that. And right now we have, you know, there's a teacher shortage. And I have a plan called This Is It. That means nobody else is coming. And so as a team, we're talking about how we're gonna serve a growing school system when people are not coming to teach. Last year, 50,000 people got out of education and only 21,000 came in. And so when you have teachers, right, that do a phenomenal job, that work hard, that do all these things, they work with students that have all these things happening in personal life, and then we get on the microphone and we say, you know, we don't want to go there because of all these other things. I really want to make sure that we're very careful with that, because now we're speaking, you know, and I always talk about speaking life. You know, in my head, you know, we're speaking the opposite of life into the Jackson community. And so I just want to make sure that we're very cautious of that. And this is off the top of my head. I don't know if it's getting apart, but it really hurts my heart. And so I just want to say, you know, Principal Smith, if you're watching, and your staff, y'all keep doing what you do for kids, because those kids deserve you. Those kids deserve you, and you're working hard for them. And so I'll be done with that. And so now we'll talk about the southeast section of Lamar CISD. So Ms. Cole Hamilton, did I just throw you up there like that?
I'm a crier though, right?
You are a
I'm a
crier.
crier, so
You are a
sorry.
crier.
You gotta get it together. Oh my gosh. Okay. Oh, we're gonna let him get it, okay.
So if you do me a favor, everyone that's leaving, if you would please just like watch the board meeting when you're done, and help us get the correct information out. That would really be beneficial and helpful. I would appreciate you helping that.
I know, right? I know. Good. Oh, look at that. Okay. Okay. All right, so the last part of our presentation will address the southeast portion of the district, and this will impact the following trustees: Hotzel and Welch. And so let's take a look at some projections. So now we're talking about a leveling project that would impact Campbell, Carter, Dickinson, Hutchinson, Velasquez, and Williams Elementary. And then the same color coding applies. So red represents campuses that are over capacity over their building and their portable capacity, if they have portables. Orange represents campuses that are within their building capacity. And blue represents campuses that are severely under capacity. And so again, if we do nothing, we have several campuses that are underutilized, but most importantly, we have Carter that will go over capacity later in the 27-28 school year. So this evening, we are going to present some options for leveling options to address this and better balance enrollment in this area of our district.
Good evening, Board Trustees and Dr. Nevins. Just some things that we've changed on our maps. These maps are different than the other maps that we have because we changed the background. We also put higher contrast between the neighborhoods, between the elementary school zones so that they pop a little bit more and people can understand what colors are associated with what campus. And again, we've also put the neighborhoods on the maps as we look at them. So our current attendance zones on your left, option 1 is on the right. Option 1, Campbell Elementary's attendance zone does not change other than adding the River Park that is east of 99 and north of 59 would go to Campbell. The west side of River Park would go to Hutchinson. Dickinson Elementary's attendance zone would stay the same, but it would pick up Brazos Terrace and Brazos Gates. Velasquez attendance zone stays the way that it is. Hutchinson's attendance zone, because it is River Park that is west of 99 is coming, or east of 99 is coming off. It's allowed to go south of 59 and pick up River Chase and Brazos Village, Brazos Gardens, and the retreat at Sovereign Estates, allowing Williams to go south and pick up Bondbrook Plantation, which is the north side of Bondbrook, north of Reading, and then Bridlewood Estates. Are there any questions about option one?
Mr. Buchanan, can you explained to me the other day when we were having lunch about this, why River Park, the logistical reason why it makes sense to create an option to put them at Campbell?
So currently River Park is on, I have to cross 99 or come down and across to get to Hutchinson, currently the way it sits. Campbell Elementary has an entrance that comes off of between Grand Parkway and the river. There's an entrance into the Great Wood that allows us to get to Campbell Elementary. There is a U-turn there at Grand Parkway where buses can come down the service road, U-turn and avoid that intersection to be able to get into the Great Wood and get to Campbell. And again, at the river, there's another U-turn to come back and get back up to River Park. So logistically, being able to have that portion of that neighborhood go into Campbell logistically allows our buses to avoid major intersections in getting there. That was the logistical reason why River Park in this option would go to Campbell.
And I just want to reiterate to the ABC, the Attendance Boundary Committee that we're going to put together. If option one is adopted, River Park secondary would stay on the blue track. It would not go to the maroon track.
Yes, sir. Currently, options 1, 2, and 3 for Tomas has River Park staying at Lamar.
So this is only pre-K through 5th grade.
That's correct.
That will probably be misunderstood a little bit, no matter how much we say it, but I'm going to say it several times, is River Park would stay on the blue track for secondary if option one is adopted.
Yes, sir. At 59 through this section of the district, north of 59 would be at Lamar Consolidated, south of it would be at George Ranch High School. Option two was developed taking River Park, that is east of 99, north of 5969, and taking it into Dickinson. Greatwood Knoll would be the only current neighborhood that goes to Dickinson that would stay at Dickinson. The rest of Greatwood that contends Dickinson would go to Campbell. Then Dickinson would also pick up Brazos Terrace, Brazos Village, Brazos Gardens. Hutchinson would pick up Brazos Gates, River Chase, the retreat at Sovereign Estates, and then Bondbrook Plantation would go to Williams. Bridlewood Estates would go to Velasquez, and so would Brazos Lakes go to Velasquez in option two. Option three. Option three, Hutchinson's attendance zone would not change. Nobody would come off, nobody would go on. Williams' attendance zone would not change. Nobody would come off, nobody would go on. Campbell's attendance zone would stay the same in Greatwood. It would just pick up Bondbrook Plantation. Dickinson's attendance zone in the Greatwood area would stay the same, but it would pick up Bridlewood Estates and Brazos Lakes. Velasquez attendance zone would pick up what will be Austin Point for option three. And then we have option four that we got feedback to be able to put together. The change for this, Hutchinson would not change, Williams would not change. Velasquez, there would be Greatwood Crossing would come out of Velasquez and go into Campbell. 3 sections of Terra would go into Campbell. 1 section just south of Greatwood Knoll would go into Dickinson, allowing Bondbrook Plantation, Bridlewood Estates, and the future Austin Point to go to Velasquez, and then Brazos Lakes would continue to go to Dickinson. Are there any questions or any options we need to go back and revisit?
So again, lots of feedback, especially for my area on this one. I attended a kind of town hall type meeting that was very much against option 2. Over 75 people in our neighborhood attended, and the main problem with option 2 is when you look at these neighborhoods, you can kind of pick out, there's Brazos Gardens, there's Terra, and then there's Greatwood. And Greatwood, to single out the knoll, it's not really a neighborhood, it's a very small subdivision within the neighborhood. So it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And then I also know that Mr. Welch and I asked for option 4. That one just doesn't make a lot of sense to me either. So
It doesn't.
I want to propose, and I don't have to make a motion, I guess, since I do. Okay, so
Let's do it now.
let's do it now. I would like to make a motion to take both option 2 and option 4 off the table and allow the ABC to come up with a third option in the future.
Only one, so would the,
I need to have a second before discussion, since that was a motion.
I'll second it.
And then you can discuss.
okay.
Go ahead.
So the other ABCs, we're gonna allow them to create 4 maps, to have the 3 and potentially make a 4th,
Okay.
if they can come to a consensus. Would it not make sense to allow this ABC, since we would give them, if we pass your motion, we would only give them 2 maps? Would it not make sense to allow them to come up with 2 additional maps, bringing their total maps to 4, matching the other ABCs?
Sure. I'm fine with that. If they can, yeah.
So maybe
Okay,
you
so-
withdraw the motion and then make a new motion with the
Sorry.
2 options.
Okay, I withdraw that motion that I just made. And I make a new motion to table options 2 and 4 for Southeast Lamar and allow the ABC committee to come up with 2 additional options.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes.
Can I have are we still gonna talk about this? Okay. Okay, this, because it's not my neighborhood, I wanna get more information. We're trying to alleviate some overcrowding at Carter, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
That the need for this, and that possible, some schools not being utilized to their fullest capacity because they're in older neighborhoods. Is that?
Yes, ma'am. Those neighborhoods are starting to age
Age
out at this
out.
point in time, meaning they're not having as many younger students come into that neighborhood.
Okay, so one of these, maybe you threw it out, just seems like it's like a patchwork quilt of trying to move kids around. Was that one of the ones we threw out?
It was 4.
4.
I believe it was 4.
Is that 4?
It didn't make much sense.
Well, 3 looks like that too, because there's pink here, 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 here. So mainly, we're really trying to work hard to work for Carter and their future growth, because there's still a lot of construction around there too, or not? Yes?
Yes, ma'am. Carter Elementary sits here. There's neighborhoods all through this development area that have not actually put in homes yet. So this area is going to continue to grow directly around Carter. In option 3, we're only moving 3 current neighborhoods with students, which is Bombrook Plantation, Bridlewood Estates, Brazos Lakes. The other community that we're moving in option 3 does not currently have any students because it's Austin Point, and they have not put a home
Okay.
currently in there. So this option was developed because we're moving the least amount of kids to be able to achieve the relief for Carter.
Which is what I was taught when I first got on the board.
Yes, ma'am.
How do you achieve but least disruptions? Okay, so really, this Brazos Lakes down here is not actually developed yet?
No, ma'am, Brazos Lakes does have students.
Okay.
I'd have to pull up the exact number.
So which one did you say?
I also just want to highlight something he said in that Austin Point projections are included in these maps, because I get that question a lot, like, what are we doing? But Mr. Buchanan, you said Austin Point is not projected to have students until,
So right now, what we're looking at is the biggest impact influx of that, and our current estimates is the fall 28.
Okay.
Is really when we start to, there are some, but not the large volume of what we're looking at, because they just haven't come out of the ground yet.
and our plan is not to put them at Carter, it's to put them at Velasquez until they get their own school.
In option 3, yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Okay.
Okay,
Ms. Danziger, it's 48 students in Brazos Lakes,
okay.
current elementary school students.
And right now, they're at Carter.
That's correct.
And you're looking at putting them at Dickinson. Well, there's Thomas over here in pink too, so I was getting confused. Okay. All right.
Did some of these, sorry, go ahead.
I didn't know if she was done or
In
not.
in Bridlewood Estates right now, is that Carter?
That's correct.
Moving them over to Dickinson. Okay. I'll just make sure I understand.
Did we move some of these neighborhoods around previously with Randall? We've already kind of,
It wasn't Randall, it was when Carter Elementary opened, and a lot of those folks in Bondbrook went from Williams Elementary to Carter.
okay.
Well, and then we moved some when we opened, we moved some from is it Summer Lakes?
Summer Lakes,
Back to Williams,
yes, that was a year and a half ago.
okay, to help Arredondo with their
Arredondo,
overcrowd.
right.
Well, that's when we opened Phelan. We
Phelan.
leveled we did some rezoning and leveling it together with
Which
that.
we try to do when we're opening a new school, but right now, we're not opening a new school in that area.
That's correct.
Mr. Buchanan, when we were talking the other day, I told you I was gonna ask you this publicly. I'm a homeowner right next to Bondbrook and right next to the Bridlewood area. The folks in the north part of Bondbrook, there's 271 students there, if I remember the numbers
sir.
right. So the question is this for those folks, and I met with them recently. They're very concerned. They don't want to move out of Carter. Is there any scenario that 271 kids from Bondbrook can stay at Carter Elementary? What is that scenario if we're gonna stay at the building capacity, not go over? Because that seems to be the consensus of most of the folks that I've.
Oh, no. So, Board of Trustees, Mr. Welch, when you look at this, this is our current, this software allows us to geocode every student that we have within the district. So this is our geocoding of our students right now. So if you see the large cluster around Bondbrook, both north and south of Reading, and then you have this section around Carter. If you look at the rest of Carter's zone, even though it's large, there's not students in that zone. So for be able to lasso that number of students, we would basically have to, that's 303 students. So we'd have to grab all the students around Carter and put them someplace else, and then Carter would be would be located in the middle of another elementary school's attendance zone, and students would be going into that attendance zone to attend Carter.
So I want to say that again. For the Bondbrook Plantation folks, the only way to keep both sides of Bondbrook, of Reading Road, at Carter Elementary is if Stone Creek Estates, where the Carter Elementary sits, moves.
That's correct.
There's no other scenario that you can come up with that would.
No, sir,
Because
because
that is the mantra I heard when I went and spoke to those folks Thursday night.
So again, this is looking at Carter's geocoded students. This is Bridlewood Estates. Here's Bondbrook, both north and south of Reading, and then here's Brazos Lakes. So we're already talking about moving Brazos Lakes out, Bridlewood Estates, and one part of Bondbrook. And these projected numbers, there's developments that's not even shown right here that they're putting in roads to put houses in right next door to Carter. So that 303 is just current students that live in that zone, not, any projections moving forward. Yes, sir.
So if the ABC can come up with something that we're not seeing right now, God bless them.
That's correct,
And
sir.
they can come back to the board with it.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Well, Bridlewood is as well. Bridlewood and one of the projections is going to move. How many students are in Bridlewood? There's more land there. The houses are not as dense. Yeah, that's Bridlewood.
46?
46. And that's on the one side of Reading Road, because it also, there's another section of Bridlewood that comes out and faces Carter.
That's correct, but currently, there's no roads attaching these two. That's why we have these divided up when we talk about planning zones. Because one faces A. Myers and the other one, faces up north.
Well, the ABC is gonna have a good time on that one because there's gonna be passionate folks all over that area that are gonna be part of that committee, so. I'm all for the solution that keeps everybody where they wanna be, but sometimes it's logistically not possible.
Any other questions about options?
All right.
Our next speaker is going to be Cody Messer.
Good evening, Dr. Nivens and Board of Trustees. My name is Cody Messer, and I'm coming to you as a concerned parent of Dickinson Elementary School. My husband and I have been Greatwood residents for the past 4 years. I currently have a 3rd grader and a 1st grader who are proud Dickinson Dolphins. My youngest daughter will be there in 2 years, so I will have 3 students at Dickinson Elementary School. I'm here tonight in regards to the rezoning occurring in our neighborhood. During our kids' short lives, they have had to endure things we could have never imagined. They've been plagued with the pandemic, school safety worries, on top of the current expectations that we put on our children today. Their school environment has felt at times their one remaining constant. I truly believe that every parent wants the best for their children. I want the best for not only my children, but their classmates, their families, our teachers, our school, and our school district. I ask of you to consider all options that would keep our children together at Dickinson. It is no shock that our children only get one childhood. Their childhood will affect how they view the world, how they love, how they trust, and how they feel about themselves. Every time we interact with them, we have the power to cherish or crush their spirit. I am pleading with you tonight to not crush our children's spirit. Dickinson has become these students' second home that they love with immense pride and what provides them with a strong sense of belonging and safety. A consensus amongst many Dickinson parents is that we are more than excited for new students to meet and new families to welcome and embrace. I understand without a doubt that emotions and logistics cannot always interact, but we do ask you to consider these options, keeping our kids together. Thank you for your time.
Our next speaker is Megan Ryan.
Well, thank you, trustees. I didn't bring any notes up because honestly, you guys addressed my main concerns. So I'm Megan Ryan. I'm a mother of 3 beautiful elementary kids at Dickinson. We live in Greatwood Knoll, that tiny little section of Greatwood that was singled out in option 2. So I did plan to talk about how absurd that option was. But I do want to thank Trustee Hotzel for actually the motion that she brought forth to take away that option. So thank you guys. You guys made my job at the moment a little easier. I do just want to reiterate, though, I think what Trustee Danzinger said, minimal disruption. I mean, I really do think as we look at other options, that's what we need to look at, not maximum disruption. We have one school that is over capacity. Let's figure out how to place some of those kids in a few different schools if need be, but let's not play musical chairs with all the different schools and move kids from here to here to here to here just to make up room for another school. Thank you.
That is all.
All right, trustees, so now we'll move from leveling, now we'll talk about rezoning, the rezoning process for new campuses that we're gonna open. So we'll talk about Milton Randall Elementary School 36, Terrell, and Elementary 35. So Ms. Cole-Hamilton.
Okay, trustees, so in the previous discussion, we discussed leveling, which is always optional. However, rezoning has to happen. We are opening new campuses, and we simply have to create the population of students who will attend that particular campus. So with Melton Elementary, Randall Elementary, and Terrell Elementary opening in August of '24, and elementary schools 35 and 36 opening in August of '25, we need to rezone some current elementary campuses to create the population of students who will attend these new campuses. Like we've been sharing all evening, trustees, the rezoning and the leveling process mirror each other. We follow the same objectives and criteria. We follow the same process. The attendance boundary committee constraints and guidelines are the same. What does change a little bit could be the timeline. And so on the screen now is the timeline for rezoning. And since rezoning has to happen, we've prioritized that. And so that process will actually occur prior to the leveling process. So you'll see that the community survey will still launch in January, but it's early February when we're having these rezoning meetings with the Milton Randall Elementary 36 ABC and the Terrell and Elementary 35 ABCs. Our goal is to bring you a future action item for this in February with the intent to bring an action item for you to determine these new attendance zones in March. So as we talk about the Milton, Randall, and Elementary 36 areas, we are talking about the area that impacts trustee Box's constituents. And so let's look at the rezoning projections for this area. The opening of Milton and Randall and Elementary 36 could potentially impact Huggins Elementary, Lindsay Elementary, and Tamron Elementary. On this chart, we've notated the three campuses we're talking about and also what year they open. The same color coding applies. Red are campuses that are over capacity, over their building and their portable capacity. Orange, they're over their building capacity. And blue are campuses that are under capacity. Just another note for the people in the room and the audience at home, these are just projections. They are, of course, subject to change. And so if we do nothing, let's look at that bottom chart. If we do not open any elementary schools next year or the year after, you see we certainly have campuses that go over capacity. Therefore, we have to discuss what rezoning looks like. And I'm going to bring up my colleague, Mr. Buchanan, to share the options for the 24-25 school year, as well as the 25-26 school year.
Good evening, Board Trustees and Dr. Nivens. Tonight we will walk you through these options that we have created. So this is the current attendance zone for Lindsay, Tamron, and Huggins. Again, we put neighborhoods on this to better help identify what areas will be impacted. So option one for Melton Elementary School, if you'll compare it to the west of Texas Heritage Parkway, there's a section of Young Ranch neighborhood that would go to Melton. There's a southern section of Willow Creek Farms, majority of it is in Katy, would go to Melton, and then Jordan Ranch. So those sections would come out of Lindsay and go into the Melton attendance zone. This way, we were taking that attendance zone and using Texas Heritage Parkway, keeping one side of it to one campus, the other side to the other. Tamron Elementary School, we would take the southern section of Tamron that's on the east side of Texas Heritage Parkway, along with, there's a section of Tamron that's on the west side of Texas Heritage Parkway, would go south into Randall Elementary, along with Cross Creek Ranch would both go into Randall Elementary School. So that is for the fall of '24. For the fall of '25, option one would be, there would be no change to the Melton and Randall attendance zone, but Tamron West, Cross Creek West, Pecan Hill, and these two undeveloped sections would go into Elementary School 36, which is located in the Cross Creek West neighborhood. Are there any questions about option one for fall of '24 or option one for fall of '25? So option two for the fall of '24, we did make a few changes. This section currently is in Tamron's attendance zone. In option one, it would go to Melton. In option two, it just stays with Tamron Elementary. That would be the only change to Melton's attendance zone for fall of '24, option one. For the Randall attendance zone, the Tamron neighborhood that's west of Texas Heritage Parkway would continue to stay at Tamaron, but we would grab another section of Tamaron's neighborhood to the south, would roll into Randall Elementary for the fall of '24. For the fall of '25, the section of Tamaron that we talked about that would be west of Texas Heritage Parkway, along with Tamaron West and Cross Creek West, would now roll into Elementary School 36. Are there any questions about option 1, fall of '24, or fall of '25? Option 2. Excuse me. So option 3. Option 3 for Melton Elementary School is identical to option 1. Option 3 for Randall would be the current section that we talked about, but also adding Fulshire Run and Bodark Estates to the Randall attendance zone. So that is option 3 for the fall of '24. For fall of '25, option 3, it does not change Melton or Randall's attendance zone, but now Elementary School 36 would be Cross Creek West, Tamaron West, what Century Community Homes is building up here, along with 2 empty sections of undeveloped land. Are there any questions about option 3, fall of '24, fall of '25?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify, when it talks about Bodark Estates, that border, that southern border of where you have on the map ends at Walker Lane.
That's correct.
Okay, so Redbird, all of that would still be zoned to Huggins.
That's correct.
Okay. So basically, it's just Walker and Fulshire Run.
That's correct.
All right, so just a reminder, we'll go back to the timeline. The survey again will launch in January, and the ABC meetings for the Melton, Randall, and 36 would be February 5th and 7th. So as we transition to talk about the Terrell Elementary and Elementary 35 openings, this would impact trustees Bronzell, Box, Danziger, and Lambert. And the opening of these 2 campuses impact Adolphus, Bentley, Hubenack, McNeil, and Terrell Elementary. Well, yes, and McNeil Elementary. The color coding remains the same. Again, these are data projections. Looking at the bottom chart, you'll see that if we do nothing, we have schools that are in the red and the orange. And so we created some options to show you what it looks like to relieve those campuses, as well as create the population of students who will attend Terrell and Elementary 35.
Good evening, Board of Trustees and Dr. Nivens. Tonight we want to bring forth some maps regarding the opening of Terrell Elementary and the opening of Elementary School 36. So our current attendance zone is on the left. So the proposed attendance zone for the fall of '24 in option 1, Covey Trails, Canyon Village, Canyon Spring, Canyon Lakes, Candela, Hidden Lakes would make up the Terrell Elementary School attendance zone. There is no changes to Hubenack, Adolphus, or McNeil in the fall of '24, option 1. So for the fall of '25, it would take Horseshoe Ridge, Canyon Gates, and Briscoe Falls, along with Rolling Oaks, Rolling Creek, sections along 723 off of Bentley into Elementary School 35, and take Lakes of Bellaterra West and Talavera and move it into Elementary School 35. So 35 would impact both Bentley Elementary and Hubenack Elementary Schools. Are there any questions about option 1 for either year? So option 2, so in option 2, what we're looking at, trying to provide relief to Hubenack earlier than when 35 would open up in the fall of '25. Terrell Elementary School, its attendance zone stays the same in all 3 options. I would like to point out to the Board of Trustees, adding any of these neighborhoods adjacent to Terrell Elementary School, put it capped the year it opens. So it would open capped, and we would also have to remove some students, about 100 off of that campus the year it opens, if we added those additional neighborhoods. What this would do in option 2 for the fall 24 is Lost Creek, along with Allura District West, it's an apartment complex, along with Club Estates at Parkway Lakes. Everything north of Bel Air would now shift up and go to McNeil Elementary School. In the fall 25, that section would stay the same. Elementary School 35's attendance zone. The only thing that we did is we went south and stopped just short of the 359, 723 intersection. So everything along 723, which we don't have many students, would just go north up 723 to Elementary School 35, instead of having to go down the 723, 359 intersection and then come back up to Bentley.
Elementary 35 is on the same property as Tomas High School.
Yes, sir. It will be Tomas High School, Banks Junior High School, Middle School 7, and Elementary School 35. And they will all 4 open up in the fall 25. I would just like to point out in this option, if you'll notice, Elementary School 37, it opens in the fall 26. So anything that happens on the east side of 99 could be impacted with the rezoning of that elementary school as well. So this is option 3 for the fall of 24. Again, Terrell Elementary School would stay the same. What we did on this one was this section currently, which is the Allura District West, along with Club Estates at Parkway Lakes. The Meadow at Parkway Lakes and the Grand Meadow at Parkway Lakes is currently at Hubenack. This option would move that section east of 99 into McNeil. It would not affect Adolphus at all. And again, this would be giving Hubenack relief earlier than the fall of 25, when we would pull Lakes of Bellaterra, Talavera off of Hubenack, along with Horseshoe Ridge, Canyon Gates, and Briscoe Falls, Rolling Oaks, Rolling Hills off of Bentley Elementary School. Are there any questions about any of the options that we presented for either year?
Yes, my question was, and it's being answered, that just because we open up Terrell doesn't mean it's gonna help Hubenack until the next year when we open up the elementary school 35?
Yes, ma'am. Because there is a large section of students that live in this area. So if I'm pulling any of those off, you would again create things that we've talked about where Terrell would be in the middle of
Overcrowded.
Bentley's attendance zone while students would be coming into it.
And Hubenack right now is capped,
That is correct.
so it would stay capped for 1 more year?
That is correct. Unless
They-
option 2
they-
or option 3, where we give it relief, would allow it to.
But those are information I think people need to understand.
Yes, ma'am.
I have a question about, that's related but not directly about any of our options, but it's about staffing and about, I should have asked this earlier in the meeting and it slipped my mind. It's staffing and staff transfers throughout the district. Contracts for next year, how will all of our decisions, it seems like some of our decisions are gonna be made after the fact that those decisions have to be made by staff. Is that correct?
That is correct. One of the things we are, of course, watching from the HR standpoint is, of course, is the timing of when we make these decisions. So, of course, we'll also try to make sure those camps are aware of when we open up our transfer portal, and also when we choose to kind of, for lack of better words, allow employees to be able to choose to go from different campuses as well. But we'll also make sure we have a timeline in place to make sure that whenever we make the decision on these, we'll also, if need be, kind of slowly delay the process to make sure that we know from our point of view when we have to make sure employees go from one campus to the next. Based off of decisions that are made today. So we'll still use our process. Of course, last person in will be one of the first persons that is to be considered to go to the next campuses, but we'll definitely be prepared to make sure we ensure that the camps are adequately staffed with, based off the decisions made tonight. I mean, sorry, when we make those decisions in the future.
And that'll apply to all employees? Is that
Correct.
Is that what you're saying?
Yes, sir. And I also want to comment on you talked about contracts. So once the employees have their contracts renewed, which of course is in the spring, that doesn't mean that means when they sign their contract, that means they're locked into the campuses that they're in. It just means they'll still have employment with the district no matter what.
And those who are not on contracts but might not be needed, or I guess, so here's what I'm getting at. An employee who is at a campus who might want to transfer, if that transfer window closes, and then we rezone to where there's no longer that many custodial persons needed at a certain campus, then is it true that custodian might not have a choice, had missed that window to go to his or her preferred campus, because that transfer window has closed? And they would still keep a job because we would need them somewhere else, but they just wouldn't have as much flexibility. Is that accurate?
Well said. Yes, sir.
All right. And there's no other way around that with all these decisions coming in, us getting the public involved and our timelines.
That's correct. We'll always make sure that the need is met first before the staff preference.
Gotcha. Thank you.
So if you remember, trustees, last month I talked about how teachers have to follow students. And so when we have a campus that we have to level, for instance, or rezone, and then we're reducing the number of students at a certain campus, then that campus now has an excess of teachers. So now teachers have to follow students, right, to make sure that we have enough staff. And so the only time you really have to start, reducing staff is when you lose enrollment. And so for us, as long as we continue to grow fast, we'll never have to reduce staff by, riffing people or laying off folks, as we would say in corporate America. And so we'll always need them. But as Mr. Bates said, we'll make sure that the need is met before the preference is met. And so there is a certain window for preferences, but if we ever have to make a decision after that, then what Mr. Bates and his team do is now we start to notify staff that, okay, now you're needed at X elementary school. And one thing we started last year is anytime we have to force transfer a teachers, because we force transfer kids now. So anytime we have to force transfer a teacher, we also give them a stipend to move because they've already bought things for that classroom. They set it up. And so what we do is we give them a stipend to go buy new materials, but also all they have to do is just pack their room. And then our maintenance staff will help them move to the next campus, and then they'll set up their room. So we try to make it as seamless as possible for them. But we do know sometimes that happens 2 weeks, 3 weeks into the school year. And so they've already established relationships with their students. And so, but, we wait until after Labor Day to make the decision because we know that some families are still on vacation, some people come in late. And so after Labor Day, we start to have those conversations. And then if we see we have to move, then that's when we engage Mr. Bates and his team and then have conversation with the staff. And then we give them a stipend and we help them move. But we really handle that as gingerly and as carefully as possible because they've already established those relationships.
Let me ask, what kind of factors go into that? So if you were gonna move a teacher, for instance, from one campus and you had 2 or 3 different campuses that we need teachers to fill, like where they live possibly, would that be a factor? I mean, how do you go about saying, well, this teacher's gonna go up here, this teacher's gonna go over there?
That's a great question. That's definitely one of the things. We actually still have that issue at the beginning of the year this year, and pretty much every year. So we definitely always want to make sure there's not so much of a hardship for the teacher. So we do, if we happen to have 2 campuses or even more than 2, and from the HR standpoint, we always make sure that it's not one where they're going down, having to be, for lack of better words, go from the Fulshire side all the way down to, let's say, to the Randall side. We look to make sure that it's an area that's close enough to where, it's not so much of an actual hardship for them, or it's very close to where they were ultimately wanting to work from the get-go. So sometimes it is a situation where they may go further than where they actually live, but they were working further where they live already because they wanted to go to a certain school or a certain track for various reasons.
Sure.
Could we go back to the timeline? Because usually in the past, we've opened up new campuses like Terrell and Melton and Randall that we try to get, because the new, we'll be taking action with that in March. By that time, we'll probably have principals assigned to those schools, pretty close to that. Right, so
That's correct.
So they'll be ready for job fair
Yes, ma'am.
So see, that timeline is a little faster timeline than some of the others. So hopefully by that time, teachers would, because that's about the time that teachers are starting to make an idea if they want to move.
Yes, ma'am.
So I think that that helps in that process. Thank you.
So before we're done, I do want to give a special thanks and I guess shout out, is the best way I can say it, to our Board of Trustees. I've never seen a board be as intentional and study the maps as I have, and I've done this before in other districts. And it's a true testament to get in your car on a Saturday and drive routes and talk to community members and do all these things and return emails. I mean, you guys have done a phenomenal job in making sure that you're making the best decision that you feel comfortable making. With all the, and I've seen some that just come and just say, whatever. Hadn't opened their packet, hadn't looked at anything, and done whatever. But I mean, our trustees, ladies and gentlemen, you really have to understand all the intricate details that go into this. And you've seen just a little bit tonight publicly, but all the details that go into this and all the pressure that goes into making these decisions from community members and, and just understanding that we're here to do the best for all students, right? And so I just want to say I really appreciate your efforts, your time you've taken, the emails that you've received, the beatings that you've taken, and so, and to keep moving forward. And so if anybody's listening, I just really would like you to send a positive email every now and then that says thank you, and not that you're killing kids, but to say thank you because, they're not getting paid to do this. They're volunteers. Only people getting paid to do this, staff. Kids and trustees do this for free. And so that's who we're here to serve students. But I want to say thank you, special thank you to our trustees for your diligence in making sure that you make the best choices for our young people. So I really do appreciate that. And you're doing things that most boards in the U.S. do not have to do. Most people don't have to do this. And so you're taking it, and so you're here for a time as this. So I just want to say I really appreciate that.
Okay, the meeting is adjourned. It is 9:28 p.m.